welcome to an early edition. Oh, wait, welcome to an early edition of the Atheist Experience. I'm Matt Dillahunty. Joining me this week from the Freedom from Religion Foundation, my friend Andrew Seidel.
Thank you so much for having me on.
I'm thrilled. And by the way, for all of those, on many occasions people will say, like, who do you go to for answers on X? And so if it's a religion-based question, I have a pool of people. When it comes to legal issues regarding church-state separation, Andrew is probably the first person that I reach out to.
That.
And there's some back and forth on Twitter where you actually gave some information that helped a friend of mine as well as some people who'd called into the show. But you just did an episode of Talk Heathen.
Mm-hmm, I did.
And now you're going to do
Lots
this.
of fun. Yeah. Marathon.
And then there's another episode of Atheist Experience coming up when we're done. Basically, we're gonna quit this like right at 4:30. So fair warning, if I'm on the phone with you and the clock hits 4:30, your ass is getting dropped. And we will sneak out of the room, and they'll play a 3-minute clip, and then V and Jenna are going to come in and do the regular Atheist Experience. But I didn't want to miss this. I have a debate at 6 o'clock tonight over on campus. So it's like at 4:30, I'm changing clothes, jumping in the truck, heading over to campus. It's a free event at the AT&T Executive Center, so those people in the Austin area who want to go, the debate subject is how do we resolve the conflict between LGBT rights and religious freedoms? And as I mentioned last time, for everybody who freaked out the second that was said, this is not a debate about rights or what rights people have. This is basically going to be church-state separation 101.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really easy question to resolve. I think you're going to dispose of it quickly.
I've done zero prep for this debate because this is a simple thing to answer. And what I'm really looking forward to is the conversation and perhaps giving people who might not be aware of it, might not have thought of it, a better grounding in kind of rights and freedoms and church-state separation. Because I remember a great article by a guy who went to a high school football game in Hawaii. Mm-hmm. It became kind of like an internet meme letter thing. And he wrote about how he was excited to hear that they were going to be doing a prayer before the game until the prayer was not a Christian prayer, but a native Hawaiian kind of tribal religion prayer. And he was sitting there and he kind of freaked out. And in that process, he realized why it's a good idea to not have government-sanctioned prayers in public schools, because it may not be the prayer that you want.
Yeah, typically the only people who are okay with using the machinery of the state to promote their religion are the majoritarians.
Yeah.
Whoever happens to be in the majority then. Otherwise, people usually get why separation of state and church is so important.
Yeah. And so your new book's called The Founding Myth,
there it is.
Why Christian Nationalism is Un-American. Tell us a bit about it, because I noticed you have you like your own book so much that you
those
put
are for the
tabs
readings that I do when I
haven't even gotten to put tabs in your book yet.
I mean, so the question that I wanted to investigate in this book was the claim that you hear constantly that's never really been pushed back on, and it's, was the United States founded on Judeo-Christian principles? Or did those principles positively influence the founding of the United States? That's the question I investigated. The answer is no, they did not, certainly not positively. And it's a good thing they didn't, because there's such disagreement and conflict between Judeo-Christian principles and the principles on which this nation was founded that it is fair to say, albeit bluntly, that Christianity is un-American.
Yeah. You picked a great person for your forward, by the way. Susan Jacoby did your forward, and I've been reading her stuff on separation of church and state all the way back from there was a December 2012, I think I still have a copy, of Mother Jones magazine that was all about church-state separation. And I read through it and I poured over it. And it's stuff I already knew, stuff I found on the internet. But I literally took that copy of Mother Jones and tucked it into the bag that I took to every event, along with a $2 bill from 1936 and a $2 bill from today. So that, first of all, I always pick the $2 bills for this example, because In God We Trust was required to be added, became the national motto and was required to be added money in 1954-ish. And before that, yes, In God We Trust appeared on some coinage and other stuff, but it wasn't the national motto and it wasn't required. And yet when I go to universities and talk, students seemingly are never aware of what happened in the 50s. It's like
they aren't.
We'll go through the wars and then we'll jump forward to Woodstock and then move on.
Pretty much. And I mean, I was actually going to skip that argument in the book because I think it's such a bad argument, because In God We Trust, one nation under God, none of that dates from the founding, so how can you? But it also, those were imposed on us during times of national fear and crisis. And they often, Christian nationalists did that, and in when they were doing it, they wiped out these unifying mottos like E pluribus unum, from many one.
Hey, how can you possibly get better than that? I thought that was about the best motto you could come up with.
Yeah, and one nation indivisible.
Yeah.
Literally dividing the indivisible with God.
Yeah, putting the most divisive phrase you can imagine directly before the word indivisible, indivisible, probably a mistake.
It was. And I have to give a shout out to Susan too, because without her, this book wouldn't be what it is.
Yeah.
She was willing to read a manuscript very early on, offered to write the foreword, helped me get an agent, helped me get a publisher. It was going to be a much smaller undertaking until she told me it was bigger and better than the vision I had for it.
Yeah, I don't think that. I apologize if we have met. I don't think I've ever met her in person. She's just somebody who's like, every time her name comes up, I'm like, ooh, I'm going to read that, because she just gives so much great information. And in looking at things like the change in the national motto, there's a number of other changes that have taken place as well. And you talked about how you were not going to address that because it doesn't go back to the founding. And yet, I think in a book like this, where you're essentially pointing out the things people believe about the United States that are fundamentally flawed, it reminds me of that old quip that if the King's English was good enough for Jesus, it's good enough for me.
Yeah.
And while we know that's not true and it's absurd and it may have even been an unintentional or maybe an intended joke, if that kind of glurge becomes so popular in the public mind, it's probably worth having a couple paragraphs saying, this is not what you think it is.
It is, and to me, the interesting part about it was that it was this constant theme of a deliberate taking advantage of these times of national fear and strife to impose their religion. So it wasn't just these things, kind of organically came up. It was a very small crowd of Christian nationalists. In the case of In God We Trust, when it went on to our coins, it was 3 guys, starting with a preacher who foisted this on all of us. And they did it, it was decided in 1863 when, this was probably the most turbulent year of the Civil War. And they thought that the time was propitious, lucky. They thought it was lucky that people were busy fighting this Civil War so they could mount this rearguard assault on the First Amendment and the separation of state and church.
Yeah, and that, obviously we know this sort of stuff happens. A friend of mine, David McGraney's in town, and we actually sat down and did like an hour and a half conversation last night. He's working on a book on changing minds. He does the You Are Not So Smart podcast, and he's got a book, You Are Not So Smart, and oh my gosh, I'm going to get the second one wrong, but You're No Longer Stupid. You're no longer as dumb, whatever the hell it was. You are now less dumb. There it was. I get confused over the dumb thing because of the other connotation of the word. But we had this great conversation last night and many more about how people change minds. Is your goal with this book to get people to change minds about the origin of the United States with respect to Christianity? And also, does it really matter what the founders had in mind at all if these were the same people who were okay with slavery and all these other things that we've gotten rid of? How beholden to the founders' ideals should we be?
So 2 very separate and excellent questions. So the audience for the book it's twofold. It's secular Americans, atheists, non-believers, anybody who wants to fight for the separation of state and church, who need better arguments. We at this point need much better arguments to make this fight, and facts unfortunately are not enough. So I'm trying to give people better arguments, and one of the central ones is pointing out that this ideal, unifying state and church, using the machinery of the state to promote Christianity, is fundamentally un-American. And trying to, in the process, reclaim patriotism from the Christian nationalists and the evangelicals. And I think that's absolutely critical. A lot of people on our side of things right now think that patriotism is kind of a dirty word. Then the associations that they have when you even say that word are, MAGA hat wearers.
Yeah.
And I think that absolutely needs to change. So that's one of the things that I'm doing. The other group that I'm writing to is the big middle section of the country that doesn't realize what a threat this is. And that it is an existential threat to the American Republic. And I'm trying to convince them to help us push the Christian nationalists back to the fringe where they belong.
Well, I wish I'd have received the book about a week ago instead of getting it today, because I have a feeling, while I'm familiar with a lot of the stuff that's in there, and I'm making assumptions about some things, like, I would assume you addressed the Danbury letter at some point, Treaty of Tripoli at some point.
Yeah. So I mean, and I actually do that right in the first chapter, because the point that I'm trying to make is that those are popular arguments, but this is a much deeper argument. Right? Because you can quote the Treaty of Tripoli all day long, but the other side has the quotes that they love too.
Yeah.
And instead, if you actually really focus down and look at the principles that underlie Christianity and compare them to the principles that our nation was founded on, there is just a fundamental disagreement that you can't get by. And that's why it's perfectly appropriate to call
the
it.
first commandment, I'm the Lord their God,
Yeah.
you shall have no other gods before me, that directly flies in the face of freedom of religion.
It'd be pretty hard to write a sentence that is more at odds with the First Amendment than the First Commandment.
Yeah, I remember going through the Ten Commandments, or what's popularly referred to as the Ten Commandments, and pointing out that 1.5 of them might be consistent with American law.
Yeah, and consistent with doesn't mean influenced.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And it's, okay. A friend of mine actually yesterday was pointing out, when we were talking about the debate, they wanted me to bring up the Danbury letter, and this is what Thomas Jefferson wrote to the Danbury Baptist Church about, the separation of church and state, essentially. And the point that I was making is that, I think, while it's interesting, it gives you an insight into one of the founding fathers' mind. That doesn't mean that it represents an aggregate of the founding fathers' minds. But the bigger question here, and this is the second part of that I was getting to, is how beholden, and why should we care? Because if they constructed a living document and a nation founded on essential freedoms, even though they might have been a little silly to codify some of them unnecessarily, does it matter what the founders thought? Why are we still tied to the ideas that they came up with, a couple centuries ago?
I mean, it matters to a large extent because the Constitution is the document that governs our country, and we interpret it looking to what they thought and believed about the document. And there are places where it is absolutely 100% wrong. There's no doubt about it. The 3 mentions of slavery without ever using the word slavery, absolutely wrong. But we also have a process to fix all the errors in the document. I mean, they gave us a process to amend it. We've done it more than 20 times. The first 10 amendments are our Bill of Rights, which already improved the document. And there are aspects of it, I think, that we can absolutely be proud of. And I mean, I guess the first thing we should say is it is an aspirational document.
Right.
And we have failed to live up to many of the ideals in that. And that is something that I concede and try to make clear in the book. But that doesn't mean we should stop trying. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the principles themselves are bad, even if the founders didn't understand them in the right way. It didn't understand equality the way we would understand equality today.
There's a lot of things that they wouldn't have understood the way we did it, because the world changed. And I think the most brilliant part of the Constitution is, yes, it's incredibly difficult to pass an amendment. We've done it quite a few times, but it's difficult, and we don't always do it right. We've had to pass amendments to undo amendments, and I think it's because a large part of people tend to think, oh, this is a democracy, and that means a simple majority rules. And the Constitution is the thing that actually protects us from the majority. So, like, if the majority wants slavery or doesn't want women to vote.
Yeah, I mean, the Bill of Rights really does exist to protect the minority from the tyranny of the majority. That's absolutely true. And fun fact, the 18th Amendment prohibition was the one that we repealed was largely driven by Christians.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway.
And this always happens in time of fear. It's either, I always go back to the Bible the second I hear this, because there's, Revelation talks about wars and rumors of wars. Well, even though it's talking about something different, for me, wars and rumors of wars are the things that become propaganda tools to manipulate us to give up our freedoms or fundamentally change things. It's like, oh no, the godless communists, so let's put in God we trust on our money.
I get right into that in that section of the book when I'm talking about that. I speak to that, and there's plenty of examples where we have willingly given up rights because we are afraid of the war that's coming.
Well, while I haven't read it yet, I have known Andrew for a long time, and I know that we are peeling from many of the same sources and have most of the same views on this. So the founding myth, why Christian nationalism is un-American, is out now everywhere.
Everywhere.
He's touring around with book stuff. You can buy it. I'm sure there's an audiobook version, because I heard somebody else out bragging that they bought They bought a copy of the book, an audio copy of the book, and then they bought me a copy of the book while I was trying to buy my
which
own.
is the only way to buy books, by the way, especially this book in particular.
Buy 2 or 3 copies
Yes.
And the audio one.
Distribute them.
You'll be covered.
Yeah.
Well, great. By the way, I think we talked about. Well, we haven't completely talked about this. I'm going to leave at 4:30 to go to that debate. You are welcome to come with me if you'd like and observe it, and perhaps even be the expert that comes in and corrects both of us to say, you know what Matt said is kind of wrong, and there's a better way to look at the separation of religion and government.
I'd be happy to do that. That'd be fun.
You ready to take some calls and talk
let's
to some
do it.
people?
Yeah.
All right. As a reminder, of course, the lines are already full. The Atheist Experience is a production of the Atheist Community of Austin. We're on live normally from 4:30 p.m. to 6 p.m.-ish Sundays. That's Central Time. When I say 4:30 to 6, actually, like last week, it was 4:30 to 6:30, and then I stayed on for 30 minutes to talk to people after the show because I'm a junkie.
You're devoted.
This is. I figured it out. Not only am I absolutely addicted to doing the show, but a friend of mine suggested, because of a number of stressors in my life lately, that I, get involved and start actively working towards meditation of some kind. Mm-hmm. And I've had that recommendation from a few people. I've had incredible difficulty with it because it's hard to turn my brain off in that
I find it
context.
difficult to do that as well.
But I figured it out last week. This show is my meditation.
Okay.
It is a hyper-focused thing where we're engaging in conversation. I'm thinking about things. I'm not focused on all the problems that are going on and everything else. And what struck me is after doing the show for 2.5 hours last week, I suffer from diabetic nerve pain, among other things. And I sat here through the whole show, blah, 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 blah. Oh, thank you. And when it was over, I realized I had felt no pain through the entire show. And the instant I took my earbuds out, I doubled over right here. And I was just like, ah. So there's something about focusing on the show and the calls that's good for me.
So let's stay here and do it.
We'll do it. We'll do it for a while anyway, and then I got to debate. We have in Arizona, Noah says you're a former Mormon being attacked by the LDS, called and harassed. What can you do?
Yeah. Can you hear me good?
We can. And you picked a perfect week to call in, because if anybody's going to have advice on how to deal with potential religious harassment, it's my guest, Andrew.
Well, no offense, Andrew. I hadn't heard about you.
I don't know if I can not take offense at that. I'm very well known.
And now you have.
I've been Mormon for as long as I remember. But, so nice to meet you, Matt. Nice to meet you, Andrew.
Pleasure.
You too.
My bishop called me in, after, I hate this part because I feel like I'm in front of a celebrity and I don't know what to say.
There are no celebrities here. There may be some, actually, there are some watching. I know that for sure. But yeah, we're not.
Yeah. Okay. So I called into the Atheist Experience a while ago. Mm-hmm. And because my employee bet me, and if I lost, he said I had to call into the show. Because I guess there's not that many Mormon callers. And I did. And I spoke to Tracy and Phil, mm-hmm. and I kind of made myself look like like an idiot. And since then, I've been listening to the show nonstop in my headphones. I carpet clean all day. I own a carpet cleaning company, so that's what I do. And so obviously, after listening to all this reason, after listening to Matt quite a bit, and everybody on the show, and thinking really about my place in life, I, kind of turned away from it. Or not kind of, I absolutely don't believe in it.
And what's been the impact of that, both before we get into the people who are potentially attacking you for no longer holding those beliefs, apart from those issues, what has been the impact on your life since you essentially changed your views on Mormonism?
Well, the impact on my life personally was at first sort of like you got punched in the gut, yeah. And you didn't know what to do, like your stomach's eating itself. And what do? Because you talk to these people, they send you messages and they stop by, bring you cookies, and you're like, oh yeah. And so you just kind of feel like you're a faker, and that's what I did. I did that for about a month, and then I just felt disgusted with myself. I really blamed myself. I did.
Why?
And I felt like because I felt like I'd been duped and I was stupid. But
So Noah, the fact that someone has been duped doesn't mean that that was a failure on their part. All of us have been duped about something at some point. There's the old quote, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Now that Bush butchered it, I can't get it right most of the time either. And so first of all, don't beat yourself up because you were convinced of something that the overwhelming majority of people on the planet were convinced of, and you were in an environment where you didn't have the desire or ability or encouragement to question. And as far as I'm concerned, when you lost that bet and you called in and you feel like you made yourself look like an idiot, which happens to all of us and happens to callers on the show frequently, you took that on board and thought about it and continued to listen and explore. And then for some reason, I don't know what if was there one thing that changed your mind, or was it an accumulation of things where you just kind of reached a tipping point? But either one, you changed your mind. That's nothing I could ever beat anybody up over.
And it's not stupidity. That's courage.
Yeah,
having the courage to follow that thought process.
To say everybody around me believes this and I don't anymore.
Yeah, that is brave. That's absolutely bravery.
Well, I appreciate you saying that.
True.
I did feel stupid at first, but I, like Matt, the one episode that kind of stands out to me, I've watched it or listened to it a lot, was, I hate to bring it up to you, but when your folks wrote you that letter.
Yeah, you can bring it up. I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I know, but I just kind of, it hit home to me. It really made me think, and it really made me, think about, because what do I do with my family? What do I do with my own children?
Yeah.
That are heavily involved with this whole community. I mean, heavily involved. So, because I have 4 kids that are they do this every day. And so I just I struggled a lot with it.
So what difficulty are you having now with, where's the harassment coming from? Can you just describe that? Maybe Andrew might have some thoughts about it.
Well, my bishop called me in, and...
First of all, he's not your bishop anymore.
Yeah, you're former.
Right.
Yeah.
I have to. So this one guy called me in, and he started talking to me. And, the funny thing is, he starts talking to me about it, and I've known this guy for years and years. I really have. And I've worked with him personally. I had a pretty high position in my ward, and I gave it up, obviously. And he starts talking to me about the adversary and what happens and yada, yada. And he starts reading scriptures to me. And I'm just looking at him like, you're saying all the wrong things. And it's clear to me he doesn't have any kind of way to convince me that what he's talking about is true and what I'm thinking in my mind is true, right? He cannot coincide those things. He can't correlate it. He can't figure out what to say to me at all.
Yeah.
I've read books since I started calling the show. Like, I don't need to go into it, but Richard Dawkins' books, I've read 3 of his books now. And Christopher Hitchens, one of his books, and I'll read that book too. I'll read Andrew's book also. I'll go out and buy it, but
Actually, somebody bought my copy today. So when we're done talking, if I put you on hold, if you give your name and address to the call screener, I'll buy your copy.
Yeah. And I'll sign it, and we'll send it over.
Copy that. I would love to do that. Anyway, so the bishop is talking to me about this, and I tell him how I really feel. I just spill my guts.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big mistake because I should have been, hey, thanks. I'll let you know. I appreciate you. I'm gonna go home now and enjoy my life. And I spill my guts. I tell him how I feel. I tell him how this doesn't make any sense. There's no reason to it. I'm not even going to bring up the things about the church to him because of Joseph Smith. I'm not going to talk about that to him.
Mm-hmm.
But none of this makes sense. How the universe works and what you guys are trying to do to my life. You're trying to get 10% of my money. You're trying to manipulate my life. I don't know. For some reason in my gut, I'm feeling bad about what I'm saying right now. But
you've been taught to feel bad about it your whole life, I presume, and that's part of why.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you've been taught
So
that something or someone is above questioning or challenging, then the moment you start doing it, that guilt is something that was basically pushed on you. And it's not anything that's deserved. It's not reasonable. And I know that, I could just say, just ignore that, set it aside. I know that's not easy, but coming to the recognition that the feelings you're feeling about questioning your former religion are the self-protective mechanisms of that religion. It's the thing that keeps people believing, and it's the thing that keeps people from openly questioning and having those conversations. That stuff might stick with you for a while, even if you recognize it at an intellectual level. Recognizing something in your head doesn't change things.
Doesn't change feelings.
Yeah, I can feel strongly about something and be in the midst of a panic attack about a particular issue, and my head goes, well, there's no reason for you to be concerned about this. You can't do anything about it. You don't know. You're in this, and that's the frustration. And in your case, this is something that was largely done to you.
Right. It was. I mean, heavily. And I was a part of it. And since then, the bishop, that guy, he's called everybody and had everybody call me and try to pray for me and try to invite me to things and try to see, once you go through the temple in the Mormon church, once you do that, you're a full-fledged member. Like you turn away, you're just scum. You're a pig.
Yeah.
And that's the like, people won't say that, but really that's how it is in the church.
Oh, people will say that. Yeah. At least they'll say it to us.
And I mean, I think what you're experiencing is what happens to all ex-Mormons. I mean, this is a playbook that they are operating out of. You're certainly not the first person to go through it. You're not going to be the last. And I mean, I don't know how bad the harassment is getting right now, but I do know that it does tend to ratchet up. And I wish I could remember the name of this group right now. There is a group that helps ex-Mormons stop.
Are they the Formans?
I can't remember.
No, I've researched a lot of that.
Former Mormons. There was a Foreman thing.
And but they also have the letter that you can compose that you can send to the bishop, and then there are actually attorneys who will help you if they continue to put pressure on you or harass you, and you can get restraining orders and things like that, which are not as serious as that sounds. And
right.
you're gonna email into the show, so I will find that information absolutely, and I will make sure that it's in your hands before the week is out, so that you can get help doing that. I mean, we've seen this time and time again, and it does tend to ratchet up. That's only, though, the sort of the legal side of the pressure and the church side of the pressure. It's going to be much harder to extricate yourself from some of those other relationships, and I don't want to weigh in on what to do with your kids and stuff. That's just incredibly hard, and I sympathize with you.
Yeah, I mean, there's a temptation to say, well, if they're just calling you, stop answering. But when you do answer, you're the one that's being the bigger person here, because they're essentially targeting you because you no longer share their beliefs. And when it reaches a point where they become convinced that you're not going to change your mind and rejoin the church, that starts the shunning and the ostracizing, and you could find yourself separated from, family members and friends and everything else. And so maintaining contact and at least being willing to have a conversation might be the best course of action to potentially smooth out some of those things that might be coming down the road. But it's also worth remembering this. you don't owe anybody shit. You don't owe anybody an explanation for who you are, what you believe, anything else. And if people truly care about you, they care about you and who you are, not you and who they want you to be. And so you get to draw boundaries in your life. This happens all the time in a number of different arenas, especially people who come out of the closet as homosexual to family members. There's been recommendations that you give the people you care about 1 year to ask all the stupid, shitty questions and be obnoxious, and then draw the line in the sand and say, no, we've been down that road. You're either with me and accept me, or I don't need toxic influences in my life. You've got a long and troubling road ahead. How are your kids taking this?
I'm sorry. I really appreciate you saying that. This has been very difficult for me. My kids are, they really trust me. They really listen to me. I haven't hidden my kids from anything. I grew up, my father he's an atheist, which this has helped me connect with him. But, so I grew up watching Carl Sagan. I grew up, with all that. And so this has helped me, communicate with my children, but they trust me. They really do. So,
And I assume that your kids were already familiar with the fact that your father was an atheist.
Yeah, they were.
So when you were still a believer, I'm so intensely curious. When you were still a believer, and you had kids, and they knew that their grandfather was an atheist, how did you talk about atheism, their grandfather's atheism, with your kids?
Believe it or not, I, in some respects, shunned him in a way to my children. Obviously, I'm not proud of that. But in other respects, I've put my children around him as much as I could.
Sure.
And because I do trust my father. I love my father. My father, he works in the Pentagon. He's a software engineer. And he's a very intelligent person. So it's kind of a thing where, this is what we believe, that's what he believes. And I kind of put it at that.
Yeah.
And so, my kids come home, I talk to them about what we believe, and, it's what Grandpa believes, and that's that. And so that's been a pretty difficult thing to deal with, talking to my children. My daughter was kind of upset about it because she has a lot of friends in the church. I mean, obviously, not a lot. All of her friends are in the church. And
that's the way I was when I was 17, yeah.
Yeah, I was so...
As soon as she mentions what she thinks, they're going to just, say, get lost. And it's not fair to her, just because I'm giving this up. So, you can't imagine I'm sure you can, but I've gone through a lot of turmoil in my heart about this. Like, well, what do I do? What do I say? And what do I say for them to say? Because they're listening to me, because I'm some patriarch in their family, and I'm guiding them and leading them down this righteous path.
I look at this, and so, yeah, you're in this position. I can, first of all, I'm happy that it's helped you reconnect with your father. That's nice. One of the other things is that if you've always been straightforward and honest with your kids, and your kids still respect you, it's probably a good idea for them to see, hang on, Dad can change his mind on something. Dad can potentially be wrong. Whether they think you were wrong before or wrong now, they can at least understand that you can be wrong, and you can still be the person that they care about and love, and you can still be a person who's valuable in their life. That might make, even if there's going to be difficulties with other members of the church and terrible things where, if your daughter's friends are at church and they end up shunning her because of you you might be put in a position very quickly where you are spending less time focusing on how this is impacting you and just providing your daughter with the love and support and guidance, where the two of you can connect on the fact that you're being shunned for nothing more than being intellectually honest. You know, hey, I'm not convinced of this. And people are saying that essentially, on some level, you are a fundamentally terrible person or not worth associating with merely because you no longer believe something. And every time they go down that path, they're not presenting an argument for their religion. They are demonstrating how messed up their religious view is, whether or not it's true, whether or not they're going to, get their own planet after they die, and all the other things. They're showing that their religion isn't about love and doesn't care about truth and cannot provide evidence for its veracity, and instead is about trying to manipulate people and shun people and abuse people. That is important to make sure everybody recognizes, because I challenge anybody to find a secular humanist ever in the history of the world following the guidelines of secular humanism that decided, you know what, we're going to shun people and ostracize people and we're going to say they're terrible. Okay, granted, I'll have to retract that because people on all sides of everything are prone to saying the other people on the other side are terrible. Yeah.
But it's usually on the merits, I think, for
Yeah.
our
Yeah, as opposed to,
that person
hey,
is terrible.
I'm not going to argue it. I tell you what I'm going to do. No, I'm going to put you on hold so they can get your contact information, and we'll get you a copy of Andrew's book. But I also want to recommend that you reach out to Recovering from Religion, which is, I know there's plenty of people involved there. We've had Daryl Ray on the show recently. And also the ACA Discord, which they had a link up to earlier. It's tiny.cc/ACA Discord.
And I think that being truthful with your children, just to build real quick, it's just gonna highlight the lies of the Mormon Church. I really do. I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, it's, I find honesty is almost always going to be the right thing to do.
Very rarely.
Yeah, I had a disagreement with Sam Harris because he wrote a book about lying, where he basically argued we should never lie under any circumstances, not even when the Nazis are at the door and Anne Frank's in the attic type of thing. And I'm like, ooh,
I definitely lie then.
I think I'd definitely lie there. And there are other situations where I might lie, but
Right.
they're extremely rare. And I find that if you really want people to value you for who you are, then they have to know who you are. And if you're pretending to be somebody else and not being open about it, then they like the person you're pretending to be. And a long time ago, I decided, people are going to like me for who I am, and people are going to hate me for who I am, and I'll hang out with the ones that like me.
Yeah, that's the only way
And
to do it.
I'll, argue with the ones that hate me until they like me. And then sometimes I'll get in arguments with the ones that like me until they hate me. That's the way life goes. But on that note, I'm gonna put you on hold, Noah, and we're gonna try to get some other callers because we're on tight time constraints this week. But I really want to thank you for calling in.
You.
I'm sorry you're going through much, but I can tell just from the fact that you changed your mind, you called in, you have concerns about how your family and friends are going to view you. You are taking the calls and letting them engage with you. I'm fairly confident that you're going to be okay. It's just going to be rough for quite a while, and definitely reach out to Recovering from Religion. And there's a community at the ACA Discord and other places like that people can point you to. And we'll see if we can look up some resources on Ex-Mormon if you don't already have them.
I appreciate you.
Thanks so much, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, so if we can get that address, that's
That was hard. That was really hard.
yeah.
Good for him.
I had everything. When he started to break down, I was like, oh, wait. I'm not so good when people start breaking down. We get, it's interesting. Everything ties together. And I understand sometimes why people will look at coincidences in life and think there must be some divine guidance. Because it's an interesting coincidence that you showed up on the same day that I'm doing a debate that is fundamentally about church-state separation. David's here talking about changing minds and stuff, and one of the first calls we get on the show is somebody who called in as a Mormon and then kept listening and ultimately lost their religion, and now they're calling back to find out what the hell do I do now that things are falling apart.
On a bet too, which is interesting.
So now, if you were opposed to gambling, you should change your mind because clearly there are occasions where gambling can result in vast paradigm shifts for people's belief systems. We've got Trey in Oklahoma. How are you?
Hi. How are you?
We're doing all right. Yeah, you're on with Matt and Andrew.
Hi, Trey.
Oh, hi. I'm so glad to be here. I've been wanting to call in for a while, but I noticed that the Freedom from Religion Federation guy was on, and
Foundation, but
Freedom from Religion Foundation.
we'll work it into
take
Star
it.
Trek later.
It's still
anyway.
FFRF.
Yeah.
I mean, that's still.
Okay. Well, I am, and this is kind of hard because can you hear me still?
Yes, we're good.
Okay. It's kind of hard to say because I've been teaching elementary music and art and gifted and talented for 17 years
At a public school?
Yes, in a small town in Oklahoma.
Okay.
And I'm afraid. I didn't ask my wife about calling. I didn't ask anybody.
It's funny because I'm watching Andrew compose a brief in his head now.
I know.
He knows where this is going.
Yeah, I hear all the things.
So tell us what's going on at your public school where you teach.
Oh wow. Okay. For 17 years, I have been. Well, I was told I could stop at one point, but then I got almost ostracized. But when I came into the school, and it's actually my hometown too, they do the nativity with the first grade.
Okay.
And
this is like a live nativity scene for the.
No, like on stage. That's their program. Like I have to spend all of Christmas season teaching the first grade. They were doing those songs that are really hard to do, the really hard songs. But I changed it to it's called the nursery rhyme nativity, and so that it's just the story. And I tell them, we sing this song about Herod. Oh, King Herod was a very nasty king, but I just made it fun for them because the way they were doing it had the old English style language and all this stuff that I just couldn't bring myself to do. And Jehovah's Witnesses could not be a part of music for the whole 2-3 months that I have to teach it. So it's been a struggle, but
you think that would be the obvious nail in the coffin right there?
Yeah.
Hey, we've got a school program that some kids of some religion can't participate in, but we're not doing anything wrong.
For 3 months, too.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
exactly.
There's a lot wrong with teaching religious music in public schools, and the younger the children, the better the separation of state and church tends to be, which doesn't technically make sense from a principle standpoint, but that's the way typically courts have interpreted it. Are you wanting to get this stopped? Are you wanting to have to stop teaching this? Is that your goal? Or are you wondering if this is legal?
I have tried to stop it, but dude, I'm kind of known as I went to an Assembly of God church here for a while, and I tried all the different churches around, and I'm pretty into the community. I actually published a book, a children's book, with the Native American tribe here, and this children's book was used for a Bible sermon recently, and I did not write it from a children. This child did a Bible sermon at her church with it because it's about helping others, and I did not write the book because of that. But I'm just saying, I am an atheist, and I feel like a walking demon sometimes because it's like I have to be I'll be talking to people about stuff, and they say, "Oh, God is so good to you, isn't he?" And I'm just like, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I'm now curious. because normally when people ask me church-state separation questions and is this legal,
Yeah.
I think I'm pretty good about sussing it out now after this many years and figuring it out. And yet, because of a couple things that he said, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Because this is clearly happening in the music classroom, but it is essentially rehearsal for what could be viewed as an extracurricular play. So what do you think about what we
there's a number of things. So first of all, if you have Is This Legal questions, a great place to visit is ffrf.org. We have an extensive legal FAQ, and religious music is one of those. What courts have said is that in some instances, it's perfectly okay to teach kids music that also happens to be religious because there's a lot of value in some of these older hymns. Musical value in songs that happen to be religious versus religious value in songs that happen to be musical.
Which I think I'm actually kind of okay with.
Yeah, it's kind of, it's sort of, you could liken it to, we can teach about religion,
right,
but we can't preach religion.
It's the difference, well,
in the public school.
Although I'm in favor of comparative religions courses, which are generally more critical, and they're not about teaching the religion, but teaching about them.
Yes.
But they're also not about teaching that they're wrong. And so I could see saying, you look at like Joni Mitchell or somebody doing Amazing Grace. Mm-hmm. Now that's clearly a religious song, and of course she can sing whatever the hell she wants.
Yeah.
But it is used in an almost secular sense in a variety of cases.
Yeah, Jeff Buckley's Hallelujah is like another.
Yeah, that's not religion. That's actually anti-religious when you truly dig in. And it's not Jeff Buckley's. It's Leonard Cohen's.
I like the Jeff Buckley version.
I do too. Yeah. I like that version better, but we're gonna credit when I actually know something.
Okay, all right, fair.
Where are we on the law?
So you can teach but not preach. You can educate but not indoctrinate. Music is similar. It really depends. It's harder to draw a line in music than really any other area of when religion happens to be in the public schools. The way courts decide it is they look at the overall program and determine whether or not what reasons it was selected for, what's the overall message. If you're doing it for a nativity play and you're spending 3 months on it and kids are ostracized from the class, it almost certainly crosses the line, especially when you're talking about kids in an elementary school. The pressure and their ability to differentiate between what they're learning at school and what they're learning at home is non-existent versus high school kids being able to do this.
And there's a weird little problem here in that you've got for 3 months Jehovah's Witnesses kids are being excluded. That actually may or may not be as big of an issue, and get ready to jump in and correct me because I'm going to fuck this up. But when I look at this as objectively as I can, it's their religious beliefs that are preventing them from being taught something, not so much what's being taught that is necessarily the problem. Because, for example, if you had a course that was entirely secular that had nothing to do with the Bible but taught about something that a particular religious group was opposed from so that those kids couldn't attend class, would we even allow them to not attend class?
Let's use a better example. Let's use the Pledge of Allegiance before it was modified with under God.
Yep.
Jehovah's Witnesses still wanted to opt out. Not religious at all at that point. And the Supreme Court initially said no, they're not allowed to opt out, and then they eventually
Which is bizarre, because everybody should be able to opt out. I'm never standing. I'm never saying it.
And the Supreme Court got it right 3 years later, which is a great turnaround. Yeah. And the Barnett decision is wonderful. Everybody should go read it. But here, it is religious, what is being taught also, so it's problematic. And so this is just the interesting legal theory side of things. The more practical side is what you should do if you are in this situation is report it to FFRF. You go onto our website, go to the legal tab and click report a state church violation. Our attorneys will look at it and we will help you fix the violation. And we will also, and this is critical for you, is we will keep your identity confidential. We will not divulge it. We'll just say a concerned community member in this X school district contacted us to report that this violation is going on. Here's why it's a problem. Here's why it needs to stop. And I should say too, I've had mayors write to us before and say, my city council is about to do this. I need you to write a letter and provide political cover for me so that I can come out against it.
Right.
And we've done that, and we've gotten these things stopped.
Now, what ends up happening, a lot of these, I'm sorry, Trey, I don't mean to derail this from you. Hopefully you've gotten enough to kind of get you started on that. But I want to talk to Andrew for a little bit about what happens with the FFRF and legal claims and try to get onto some more calls before we're done. But did that at least direct you towards a good way to start moving past this?
Yes, it did, but my identity is what I mean, like I just...
We have never divulged
this
somebody's identity. We have never divulged
just a
somebody's
small
identity.
town, and hopefully nobody's listening, but who knows? I mean, maybe that's
now
what
it's a
I'm trying
problem
get out
to
of.
say I'm a teacher of this in a small town in this area, and then they get a letter. It's kind of hard.
Yeah, I mean, and we can wait a while too to do it. I mean, but the only time people have ever been outed is when they self do it. I mean, and so if you complain to the school board before and then come to us, it's obviously hard for us to protect your identity in that case. But we've even taken lawsuits with the students and parents not named. They are does or rows in the lawsuit, and we can get protective orders.
But also, isn't it the case that, and I don't know what level like you guys perhaps would get involved, but if you submitted this anonymously and the FFRF decided that it was a legal issue worth pursuing, one of the things that could happen is to reach out through various atheist and secular communities to see if there are other people in your school district who would be willing to be complainants and take heat off of you.
Yeah, I mean, and our first step is always just to write an educational letter to the superintendent in this case and explain what's happening and why it's wrong. Yep. So I wouldn't even talk about a lawsuit yet or worry about that. We get between 4,000 and 5,000 state church complaints every single year, and when we send out a letter, most of the time that is good enough to fix it. The vast majority of the time, in fact, we only take between 10 and 20 lawsuits each year. And we are able to fix these things just with education. And honestly, that's preferable. I don't want to sue a public school.
Why would we waste?
This
is constantly people who are so cocksure about their religious liberties wind up costing public school districts and other things money. What's her name?
Kim Davis.
Kim Davis. She owes, what, $225,000 now because of the secondary suit? One of the interesting things, and I'm not a lawyer and not giving you legal advice at all, but if I imagined that I was in your position and I contacted the FFRF and then the school decided to fire me at some point, I'd be fucking rich. Because it may take a while.
There is such a thing as a First Amendment retaliation lawsuit. Yeah. I'll just leave that. I'll leave that dangling.
However, I wouldn't recommend any of that. The best thing to do is just to report it anonymously. Let them write a letter because a letter fixes it more often than not.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
There've been enough cases.
To feel better about this, just to feel better about this, that I feel so alone in this small town that I am. I don't think there may be any other atheists. I don't know.
Dan Barker loves to tell a story that when the Alabama chapter of FFRF had its first meeting, it was like 1982 or 3 or something like that. Everybody was really, really nervous to get together and have this meeting. And it was in somebody's house for the first time. And this guy kind of walked in and he was really shy and looked a little scared and kind of glanced around and all of a sudden had this surprised look on his face. And he pointed, and it was his neighbor from the yard behind.
They shared a fence.
They shared a fence.
And would talk over the fence for years.
For 30 years. They were both atheists, and they kept it hidden from each other.
Oh, yeah, I've completely told that story countless times on the show.
Yeah,
the first time Dan told me, and it's because people keep calling in. And they say, oh, I'm the only atheist here. Yeah. And the answer is, no, you're probably just the only atheist you know. So there are resources for you on that front. Setting aside the legal issues, in addition to reaching out to like Recovering from Religion to see if there are others in your area that you might be able to talk to. Also, each of the national atheist and secular organizations, or most of them, have some variety of state director or local chapters or whatever else. For example, the Atheist Community of Austin, we're here at 1507 West Koenig Lane. Any atheist or atheist-friendly person is welcome to come down. The building's open from 11 to 9, 7 days a week. There's almost always somebody here to say hi, and maybe you can get away from religious relatives or whatever else. But if you now here's the funny thing. Like those neighbors that were back fence neighbors for 30 years
I love this.
And didn't know, there were several secular organizations in Austin. Now, Austin's the 10th largest city in the United States. We have done a public access and now internet TV show for 21 years. And there were other secular organizations that had no idea the atheist community of Austin existed, and we've got to do a better job of bringing people together and stop letting people assume that I'm the only one.
Yeah, you're absolutely not.
Yeah.
Unless you're the only one that lives there, and the only other person is the people creating the nativity.
Yeah, if there are 10 or 20 people in your town, there's definitely probably more.
All right. Yeah.
You can reach out to those national organizations. Check out local chapters. That you can look for meetup groups. You can Google your small town name and atheist, and you might be surprised at what you find.
All right. Cool. Could I tell you just the name of my book, if you don't mind?
Absolutely.
Little Loksi, Little Loksi. It's about a turtle that gets turned over, and all kinds of people help him out, or all kinds of other animals help him out. And it's a Native American story. All right.
Little Loksi.
A little difficult to keep your identity secret now, I think.
Yeah, I'm really not. I'm not concerned. I mean, I've lived this way for so long that I think I'm ready to and people are just going to have to face it and accept me.
All right. Well, thanks, Trey, and thanks for sharing your news about your book. Let it, if you don't find an organization, you can always be the one who tries to start a local one.
Yes.
And call us back sometime. Let us know how it turned out.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.
Yeah, we get tons of questions about is this legal, is this not legal, which is why I occasionally pester you on Twitter, because while some things are more obvious, there are some gray areas. And I get into arguments with atheists on a regular basis because I'm a huge proponent. I don't even think comparative religion should be an elective. I think it should be a required course. It's when you're talking about something that the overwhelming majority of people have believed of some variety, people should know.
Yeah, and I agree with you in principle, but just the practice, what we see happen in religion and Bible classes, it never is taught the way.
Oh, I don't want religion and Bible. I want comparative religions across.
Even that, though, it never ends up being taught the way it's really supposed to be taught. Or it's very, I shouldn't
We
say
did okay in my school.
Pretty difficult.
I took a comparative religions course in 8th grade, and I was there as a fundamentalist Southern Baptist. And in hindsight, I just remember saying, gosh, look at all these people who believe all this weird shit. Glad I don't believe any of that weird shit. Oh, it's time to go to Sunday school? Okay. It just doesn't register.
I mean, I would love for kids to learn that, the virgin birth is based on a mistranslation. That'd be wonderful. And that should be in a public school curriculum if you're going to teach it.
It's funny that one of the
appropriate standpoint.
There are a lot of people who have concerns, and they're genuine concerns about teaching about religion in schools, that it's going to be done wrong. I tried to suggest that maybe we just hire atheists to teach the class, but I don't think they're going to go for that, just like they won't let me read Bible stories to their kids and grandkids. Bible stories of my choosing. But you have those real concerns. But then you look at what's actually happened. And one of the things that is most likely, I mean, there are entire religious organizations that are terrified to send their kids to college for fear of what college does to religious beliefs. But it's not just colleges. There are people who are afraid to send their kids to Bible colleges that teach textual criticism, because we already know as soon as you dig in on textual criticism and start studying into things, the requisite understanding of apologetics and epistemology and things that you would have to engage in to do this, a shocking number of, I'm a good Southern Baptist kid and I'm going to Bible college and I get into my textual criticism class and holy fuck, this doesn't make any sense and now I'm a non-believer.
It's often the first domino to fall, especially if you read the individual stories of preachers who have become atheists. That tends to be the first domino. Yeah, I mean, I'm all for it in theory, but being at FFRF, I see the real bad side of the practice, and it's hard for me to get on board. And Project Blitz is this national push right now to essentially make it so that to be a Christian is to be an American, to be American is to be a Christian. It's Christian nationalism. It's a handbook for Christian nationalism. And one of the model bills that they are trying to get passed in legislatures around the country is Bible classes in the public schools. And they're doing it because they know that once it's instituted, you can have the right language in the law and have the right guidelines, but once it's instituted, it rarely is taught the way it needs to be.
Yeah, and it could be, okay, everybody, open up your Bibles to Exodus 21. And I'm not going to tell you that any of this is actually the word of the living God, but it does allow you to buy slaves from the heathen that surround you. What do we think about that? You know, and I love the discussions, and I love the learning process by which that is Socratic. It seems to stick better. But if you turn the class over to the students as a way of kind of scapegoating indoctrination, the majority of those kids are going to talk about what they learned in Sunday school.
Yeah.
And that is one of the many ways where there doesn't seem to be any good solution around this, which is why I'm not in favor of Bible courses in school, even taught from a secular perspective, because we know that it's going to lead to problematic things and precedents that make it difficult to remove.
I mean, and the solution is you've got to have really well-trained teachers who really respect the law and the separation of state and church.
We don't even have that on science.
No, I know, and that's the problem. Our education system's a little too far beyond that right now. So
yeah, you got science teachers coming in saying, today we're going to learn about evolution.
Which I don't believe in.
I don't believe in it, but I'm required to teach you by the states.
It's on your AP test.
And you're going to be tested on it. So just memorize this and then, pray about it. Mm-hmm. And it gets worse than that. It could just be where they don't actually teach it. It's like, here are the questions you're going to be asked. Here are the answers. And now we're going to move on to something else entirely.
I mean, we sued over a Bible class in West Virginia, FFRF did recently, and they were teaching that Adam and Eve lived in the garden with dinosaurs. It was Ken Ham, essentially, in this public school classroom. And they said it'd been going on for, I think they said 70 years.
Yeah, that's one I could have answered. Not like a nativity, after school project where it's a little iffy. If your textbook was written by Ken Ham, you are screwed.
Yeah, not actually written by Ken, but basically, essentially.
Yeah,
yes.
it was.
No
if it mirrors, the Ark Encounter in the Creation Museum.
Yeah, just the most awful place on the planet, the Ark Encounter.
And way too expensive, like ridiculously expensive.
Yeah, they scalp you.
Yeah, they took me out there, and Seth Andrews and I were both out there, and we took some pictures and walked around. I was mostly impressed. There's some great woodwork there done by the Amish folks.
Yeah.
But I was mostly impressed by how empty that ark was.
Me, as was I.
And how the displays were largely, here's a cardboard placard that tells a Bible story. It's like there weren't enough displays.
Yeah, and the dioramas, and then just like speakers with sounds. My favorite part was definitely the pre-flood world, where they were showing how evil humans were and all the
There were some interesting things there. I had a different favorite part of the Ark Encounter, because as you walk through the boat, it's empty until you get to the gift shop on the way out, and that thing is packed, just loaded with. You can buy anything and everything, little animals and all of Ken Ham's books and other stuff, and it's like you walk through and you've gone through kind of I'll say the Ark Encounter itself is like mild propaganda, only because it's largely empty. So in order for it to work, you have to sit there and
there has to be
read a placard. And,
yeah.
But when you get to the gift shop, it's like, get it all away from me. It's just wild.
Yeah, we shot an FFRF commercial there and got away with it. It was a lot of fun.
I tried to get them to when we got to the exit, I was going to get them to call Ken and see if he wanted to come over and talk to me. But
so here's I don't know if I should make this confession on air. Some people probably already know about it, but somebody, not me. I want to stress that this was not me. Under the pen name...
It was Sandra Idle?
I don't know who. Under the pen name Justin Beavers wrote erotic fiction about Ken Ham and myself. It's called Ken Ham and the Seidel Man.
Okay,
I swear
to all my erotic fiction fans, you guys are slacking, because that's some slash right there. But, all right, we'll go on to Justin in New Jersey. You're on with Matt and Andrew. Hello, Justin? Are you there? It says here that there is purpose and meaning in the universe, which means that God exists. It is a proven fact.
Oh, well, we should talk to him.
And I'd like for Justin to explain that to us, but I tell you what.
There is purpose and meaning.
I'm just going to put him back on hold, and we'll go to Cora in Missouri. You're on with Matt and Andrew. How are you?
Hi, hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Hi, Cora.
Hi, okay, so
Can you hear us?
I just wanted to discuss, the existence of demons and demonic possession, and I have a little bit of personal experience, but I feel like, as a whole in the last century, there's just, a plethora of footage and, encounters and, people different testimonies of like the existence of demons and hauntings in particular, and that.
So while I will agree with you that there is a glut of claims and shows on the inappropriately named History Channel about ghosts and things like that, the claims aren't evidence. And so I think, you can talk about whatever you want, but if you've got personal experience with this, I'd kind of like to know what that experience is and what convinced you that there was something demonic about it.
So the thing that convinced me, so the thing is, when I was 18, I joined a carnival, and it was a really very small carnival, and there were pagans there, and they were all pagans. So this one man said that, like, basically there was a couple of guys. There was this one who was like could like see the future or whatever, and there was this other guy who claimed he was a male demon who was like, I am a demon in human form, and that was whatever. But
I would agree.
What?
We're in complete agreement. Yes, that was whatever. Literally somebody telling me that they're a demon.
They did a lot of witchcraft and stuff like that. So what happened was, basically I found out that he was an incubus, and unfortunately I found that out after I was raped, and they had put something in my weed, and then when I had like passed out or whatever, he had raped me. So I found that out. Like,
yeah, I would recommend that.
Did you call the police?
Recommend that.
No.
Okay.
I didn't find out until after I was separated from them, and I don't even know his name, and it's just,
You didn't find out that you were raped until after you were separated from them?
Yeah, because I left like 2 days later. I was just...
But you didn't...
I don't know.
All right. I'm confused about some things. Wow, this call's going off in a weird direction. I'm really sorry that...
That's an awful experience
to you, but I don't know what the hell that has to do with incubus or demon, because
it was like
the fact that somebody claims something.
So they did so about a year after that, I talked to this Native American who could like see like he was like a psychic or something.
And how do you know that?
Well, I don't know. He just told me weird stuff about the future.
It sounds like a lot of people are telling you things, and then you're kind of just relating them to us as though maybe they're true, and without a real basis to accept that as truth.
So one of the things is, I'm leaving on Wednesday to go to Dragon Con, and I'll be doing a portion of my Magic and Skepticism show. I've been doing magic, stage magic, close-up magic, et cetera, my mentalism type stuff since I was a kid. I can easily, and I'm not even remotely among the best on the planet, I know tons of magicians who can emulate the things and often do it better than the people who are claiming psychic abilities do. So when somebody tells you that they can see the future, how do you determine that they have a psychic ability?
I guess you can't, really.
Sure. But let's assume that somebody told you things about the future and they consistently got it right. Now, the next question is, how did they do that? And how do you distinguish between somebody who made a general prediction, somebody who made a prediction that you later interpreted to be right, somebody who got lucky, somebody who made a prediction that was, likely to come true, versus somebody who had actual psychic powers? And if you found somebody who truly knew and understood the future, how do you know that the source of their understanding is demonic? There's a whole list of questions here, and I'm with Andrew that it seems quite like people tell you things. I'm an incubus. I'm a demon of this variety. I can see the future, and without any ability or any attempt to even figure out whether or not the claim is true, you just kind of accept it and run with it.
Yeah,
The question is it more likely that there's some incubus who can tell you things about the future, or that there's a person who tells you that and you believed it?
I'm not sure. I guess the latter.
I agree.
I would say if there's I don't know how, well, the thing is, if we have no way to prove it, and I don't know how common they are, if 1,000 people tell me that they can see the future, which happens, I don't know, every day in newspapers, and we test them and they're not particularly reliable, finding the one person who could potentially actually do it, you still have to recognize that, you're at a fraction of a percent of likelihood there. And the problem is the entire history of the world, we've never confirmed any sort of supernatural interaction or existence or behavior. The James Randi Educational Foundation for years had $1 million prize to anybody who could demonstrate any sort of supernatural ability or anything else, and nobody ever passed even the preliminary examination. So when it comes to the testing of these things, which is where the rubber meets the road, we're stuck. And while I know that, I don't mean to gloss this over and turn it into an intellectual exercise, because we're talking with someone who was raped. And if you're looking around at the shows on TV that are using like electronic voice phenomenon stuff to claim that, there's a ghost here, that doesn't demonstrate there's a ghost. Generally, it demonstrates that there are people who believe there are ghosts. And on some occasions, it demonstrates that there are people who are willing to pretend and lie in order to convince others. Because reality TV is almost entirely fake and crap. And that would include, I would argue, the various ghost hunter things which have been debunked over and over again. That doesn't mean there aren't ghosts. It doesn't mean there aren't demons. It just means that we don't have any ability to confirm that. And so if you're in this position where you seem to just keep accepting things, well, then just take my word for it. You don't have a good reason to believe that there are demons.
Well, yeah. There are like certain phenomena, like I don't know, like say like summoning a demon, like from hell, or
I would be like impressed.
Yes, I would like to see that.
Oh, I know a lot of people.
Well, okay, so those are two different things. So if somebody could summon a demon from hell or anywhere, how would they demonstrate that they've done that?
I guess like the possession and like
how do you tell whether somebody's actually possessed or whether somebody is faking it or has a mental health condition? Because for years, I'm getting ready to do a couple videos on religion and the mental health, and one of them is going to address the fact that the church basically wrote off what we know now to be schizophrenia and other mental conditions as if it was demonic possession. And that's what people believed until we had a better understanding of the way the mind works. So you talked about two different things, summoning a demon, possession, et cetera. And I'm not saying that those things aren't true. I'm just asking, how could we possibly ever test for that? And if we can't test for it, wouldn't it be a mistake to believe that it's true before we could?
Yeah. Well, I think the thing that fuels a lot of the witchcraft and religion, I think that what fuels it is it's fear-based.
I agree.
Yes.
People fear demons. People fear hell. People fear Satan. I'm sorry. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. It all seems to be fear-based for me, and that for me, as far as religion goes and demons and all of that, it is really very much fear-based, as on a because my family is religious, and it's just I don't know. I feel like that.
It's frustrating. You're in a world. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, you feel like you believe in demons because you're afraid of what?
Just like, I guess, afraid of demons, like afraid of them like hurting you or haunting you, or
are you afraid of the chupacabra?
You see in like other people that they would get like, I don't know, scratches or bruises or something like that, or just being like either physically hurt or just haunted.
So you're seeing physical signs that people attribute to demons. Is it more likely that it was attributed to demons or people?
A lot of times you don't know. you can't really.
Well, you do know.
What's more likely?
You can't really make the distinction.
You do know because we have 0 examples of confirmed demons, and we have countless examples of humans faking it or causing harm. And so it's you don't want to fall into like a black swan fallacy and say, oh, there are no demons because, we haven't ever found one. But when we're talking about risk assessment, like how much time have you spent fearful of alien abduction?
Like none, really.
Yeah. And yet alien abduction is, on some grounds, at least more plausible than a supernatural claim because, there's countless planets. It's unlikely that we've been visited. How likely is it that there's aliens that are technologically advanced, et cetera? But when we talk about an alien abduction, we're not necessarily appealing to anything supernatural. Everything about that is natural. It's just, it would be the same as, people get abducted by other people.
Well, the other thing that fuels it on like a witchcraft standpoint is like, do you know like energy? Like earlier we were talking about like meditation, but like there's like the chakras and there's like different fields of energy. So there would be like
so energy in the way you're describing it is a pseudo-scientific garbage language that's making claims that nobody can demonstrate. Chakras there's no demonstration that that's any sort of real thing. The type of energy you're talking about, this is all the fuzzy language that people use to convince you of something. Because if they said, first of all, you have a spiritual aura. And if you were the type of person who didn't necessarily believe in the supernatural, you might just dismiss spiritual aura. But if they say, I can see your energy, well, we kind of have some fuzzy idea of what energy is. And so just that change in language makes something seem more plausible, even though it was never demonstrated to be more plausible.
Yeah.
And so this is the same reason people believe in lucky rabbit's foots and things like this. If you put your lucky rabbit's foot in your pocket and you go bowling and you bowl better that day than another day, or your lucky socks or whatever else, there's a confirmation bias in you get bits of evidence and you build a narrative in your head that is consistent with what you already accept. If the narrative is too far out, if I say, last night I was abducted by aliens and taken outside of the universe, outside of space and time, where I was prodded by an incubus, and we start adding more and more to that, it's the sort of thing that most people would be like, oh, well, that's just a bridge too far. But if they say, oh, well, you've got energies, and there's these points in your body where we can manipulate things and adjust the flow of energy through your body, well, that almost feels plausible as long as you know nothing about how the human body works and the energy, and as long as they're not specific about describing what it is. This is how pseudoscience draws people in to where people are going to wear a crystal around their neck and, go to a reflexologist or whatever in order to align things and do things. And it's because we're all ignorant about a great many things. The world has too much stuff for us to ever know and understand, and we're surrounded by people who appear to understand things better than we do.
So I take it you're not a believer in the crystal magic as far as?
No, or any magic or anything supernatural or anything pseudoscientific.
Okay.
I did once hiking in Sedona, where they have these energy vortices, come across a couple doing yoga naked to take advantage of the energy vortex.
That's called sex.
Yeah, it was.
Okay,
That's what I
sex.
was getting at.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wish I was there. I mean, out in the energy vortex.
They were energetic. It was.
I think probably the one takeaway, Cora, is that we're not saying that these things aren't necessarily true. It's that there's been no demonstration of it, and there doesn't seem to be any ability to test it. And the language that they use to describe these things is all dependent on what may intuitively feel to people as if it were real without any demonstration that it is.
Deliberately vague.
Yeah. It's like, have you ever watched, like, John Edwards, who's the biggest douche in the universe? The guy who claims to be able to speak to the dead? One of many. Have you ever seen any of those?
Yeah, I'm familiar with mediums.
Yeah. So if you watch mediums, and you don't just have to watch their show. Like, you don't have to watch Long Island Medium because that's fake reality TV anyway, whether she has any abilities or not. You can take a look at people who've put mediums to the test and people who have a greater understanding of this. So Darren Brown is probably the world's greatest living mentalist, or most popular in the UK and everything. Love the guy. He's actually gone out and talked to people who claimed to have the ability to speak with the dead, not speak to the dead. Anybody can talk to the dead. Hi, Grandma. She's dead. I'm talking to her. It's when you get the answers back that it's
a thing,
becomes a different category. And what you witness with these people, and also my friend Ian Rowland, who literally wrote the book on cold reading, is that they're doing a combination of things called cold reading and hot reading, or at least that's what it appears like. And it would be as if I grabbed Andrew's pen and wrote something down in front of you, just a word, and then claimed that wasn't me writing, that was a spirit writing. How the hell do you tell the difference? And if you're engaged in this sort of cold reading thing, there are cues. We are really good about picking up on cues from people, most of us anyway. And if you listen to the so-called mediums, what they'll do is, they get a big enough audience. There's 50, 100 people there. And they say, over in this area, I'm getting, is it a John or a Jack? Because that's sometimes a nickname. Does that connect with anybody over here? And then, of course, somebody's going to have a John or a Jack, and then they set up. And then you ask other questions. You get cues back from them. In some cases, these people have researchers. If you bought a ticket to their event with your credit card, they have your name. We live in a world where I can look you up on Facebook. As a matter of fact, I would bet that if I didn't have 20 other things to do right now, I could go from your phone number and your name and where you live and find out all kinds of things about you without you knowing, and then sit here and pretend that I'm getting messages from beyond. And if you don't know what I'm capable of researching, and you don't know what I'm capable of detecting from an interaction with a person in a cold reading sense where I don't have any information, but, for example, it's like when I think about you, Cora, I keep getting like the number 4. Are you from a family of 4?
Me?
Yeah, are you from a family of 4? Like how many siblings do you have?
I have 3 siblings. Well, I have.
So you have 3 siblings. So there's four
really
siblings in your family, right? So you are one child of 4. Now,
yes.
If I told you that your grandmother, your great-grandmother, it's either your grandmother or your great-grandmother is coming through to me right now. Has your grandmother or great-grandmother, have they passed? Are they deceased now?
I mean, yeah, because...
And that's completely unimpressive because that's going to be true for most people's great-grandparents in many cases. And so if I played that up and said, they're talking about the 4 of you, like, did you have a grandmother that would sit there and like try to play with all 4 of you at the same time rather than picking out a favorite type thing? So
I understand, because
I am literally making all of this shit up off the top of my head, Cora, and that is what is happening in a number of other things. There are things like Barnum statements that generally apply to everybody. But if I was a douche and wanted to make money and convince people that I could give them information about their lives, putting those facts together instead of it being on the Atheist Experience show, if we were in a different setting, if we were, at a carnival tent and I had decorations around and a crystal ball and started telling you this stuff, you are the type of person who would be tempted to believe, if not actively, immediately believe, that I have some powers that I don't have.
All right.
And the recognition that can happen and does happen needs to be in the forefront of your mind so that when somebody gives you something that seems impossible, instead of running with it, you ask questions even more strongly, because those are extraordinary claims and they need extraordinary evidence, not just mundane evidence.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for explaining this all to me, because I think I really was kind of like vulnerable to like believing that out of like the fear and also the
we all are.
You said? Yeah.
We all are. And this is a constant process.
And Cora, have you sought any help or therapy or anything about the rape that you mentioned really encourage you to do that as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I've talked to my family about it, but my parents aren't exactly the most.
All the more reason maybe to seek maybe some professional help. For
I would start with a therapist, especially since your avenues of recourse through the law may be blocked.
Yeah.
But finding a counselor to talk to you about this stuff. Also finding groups.
And maybe not a religious counselor or a crystal counselor.
You can look up the Secular Therapist Project, and you can find a science-based counselor that's not going to fill you full of pseudoscience or religious gobbledygook, and are actually going to use science to discuss what your issues are and how you can move forward with them. You may not be in a terrible place and suffering from this or dwelling on it, but it's still worth it to talk to somebody.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, because I've sought out like 3 different psychics in the past like 6 months.
Yeah, not a psychic.
Don't go to psychics.
Definitely not a psychic.
Go to psychologists.
Yeah, definitely not a psychic.
And psychiatrists.
Yeah.
They won't. They seriously will not help you. They will take your money.
Yeah, and there are among those psychics that you're going to find, they run, in many cases, countless scams. And one of the most common ones, or one of the most known ones, I suppose, is telling you that the things that are going wrong in your life are because of a curse. And in many cases, they'll get you to bring in some money, which they're not going to keep that money. We are going to, this is money that we need to destroy and get rid of, along with maybe a family heirloom. Like if you've got your grandmother's engagement ring and stuff, you can bring that. We'll wrap the money and stuff up in a cloth. We will then light some candles and sage and burn it around it, and we will try to remove the demonic energies, and then we will take that money, you and I together, and we will burn it and bury the remains of it. And what you don't know is that the thing that you burn is not the big wad of cash that you gave them, because that's going directly into their cocaine habit or whatever it is that they're doing.
Yeah, secular, professional, licensed counselor.
I'd look up the Secular Therapist Project and see if you can find somebody to talk to about that. And also I'd see if you can find a local skeptics group, a free thought group, where you can talk with other people who aren't going to make you feel stupid. Anybody who tries to pretend like, oh, well, you're just stupid or you're just gullible. Based on the things you described here, gullible may be an attribute that fits what you've done, but it doesn't fit who you are any more than anybody else on the planet. The second you think you can't be fooled, it's too late. And if there's no better lesson to teach with magic about ethics and what some con artists and scam artists are doing, it's this recognition that everybody can be fooled. I don't know if we lost.
All right, yeah. Well, thank you, Matt, so much for taking my call.
Sure, thanks. Tell your 3 other siblings I said hello. On that note, we have like a minute and a half until we're going to do this changeover. I want to thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, it was my pleasure.
I wish we could get you down more often. Maybe at some point, now that we're doing like 9 different programs, maybe we can work something out where we have like an FFRF news segment of this week in legal battles.
We could definitely do
this
that.
week in church-state separation.
That would be very easy to do.
Get you on remotely and have you, like your head could pop up right here with your book on that side, your head here, and you'd be like, here's what we're working on.
I'm happy to do that, yeah. I mean, we have a studio now, so that's easy.
So I want to thank you to everybody who showed up here at the building. There's going to be more Atheist Experience coming up. Basically, Andrew and I are going to leave. V and Jenna are going to come in here and sit down. Thanks to the guys on the other side of that wall, the call screeners, the producers, the audio folks, everybody else who makes the show happen. In 45 seconds, they're going to run a short 3-minute clip. We're going to duck out of here. I'm going to go do a debate. If you're in the Austin area, you could come down to the ACA building anytime you want, 7 days a week from 11 to 9. But if you wanted to go to that debate, it's at the AT&T Executive Conference Center on campus. Starts at 6 o'clock, runs till 8. It's free for everybody. And I look forward to not only seeing you guys out there or here, but call in and let us know what's going on. If you're on the phones, don't hang up, because you're now in the queue for the regularly scheduled Atheist Experience with V and Jenna. See you later.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
My name is Derek Hawk.
Vila Bianca,
Larry Glissa,
Connor Vanacek,
Shane Istrig,
Tim Kratz,
Silas Schaefer,
Quinn,
Michael Latta,
Michelle,
James Boone. What do I love about the ACA?
the community.
community.
I love the community.
The community.
The people, the community.
I found my family. And it was immediately right off the bat, people accepted me. I've met people that will be my friends forever, and I can share anything I need to with them. It's just awesome. It's just the most nicest people, the most genuine people I've ever met in my entire life, and they've helped me become a better person also.
Interacting with atheists allows me to have some regular form of challenge in a non-threatening way.
I have lots of friends here. The conversations are great. It's what we as humans, being social creatures, we strive for.
I think my favorite memory of the ACA, it was after I think my first Talk Heathen show where I co-hosted with Eric Murphy, and everybody was so supportive and complimentary, and it felt like I had found something that really resonated with other people and was actually doing something that was important.
I can't pick just one. There's tons of memories that we have here. We do lots of things on pretty much any occasion you can think of. So to pick a favorite memory, that would be just too hard.
Definitely volunteering at Pride Fest. That was a blast, just getting to talk to so many people and hanging out with the cool people at the ACA while enjoying the fun atmosphere at Pride. So that was really good.
I've got a lot of them. I have a lot of good memories of coming down here, going to American Atheist Convention, and the friendships that I've made. I've got a lot of good memories here.
The most rewarding thing about being involved in the atheist community most of it all is to get to see growth and freedom realized by people who've been impeded and enslaved by ideas and doctrines and communities, even without their knowledge, throughout the entirety of their lives. Nothing is better than that. Okay, there's this community in Austin, maybe I could find my place in it. Let's see what this is all about.
So you think that you can tell us how to live our lives, never questioning the source from which your moral code derives. You think that suffering is part of some great plan that's been devised. I wonder what will it take for you to start opening your eyes? I wonder.
Hi everyone, I'm Jenna Belk, and welcome to the Atheist Experience. With me today is V. LaBianca.
Hello.
And she is the co-host on Secular Sexuality and has been co-hosting on Talk Heathen as well. This is my first time hosting, so this is fun. Welcome, and thank y'all for coming and watching. I just wanted to plug in. I started a show this past week. I realized that I have a unique perspective to share with the world, and I just want to kind of help with the things that I've been learning. And so it's called Atheist Stasis, and it's on YouTube now. Unfortunately, it's really hard to search because I had it posted as unlisted for my patrons so that they could watch it before I posted it. And now that I've made it public, you can't search it in the search bar. So I'm going to fix that. But you can search it by searching my name as a channel, and you can find it that way. And so I'll fix it from there. But did you have anything you wanted to say?
That's amazing. Just congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
I'm excited for you. Oh my gosh.
So I guess we'll get to calls and
I'm
just
ready.
keep the show going.
Yeah, let's do it.
Who did you want to talk to first?
Oh gosh, I don't know.
Maybe Angela?
Yeah, let's go with Angela.
So Angela, oh, nope. Hold on. Angela, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi,
Hello.
You're talking to Jenna and V.
Hi.
It says here that you're kind of confused, right? You're Morgan, then Pagan, then kind of questioning.
Yeah, well, I was raised Mormon, and I got out of that pretty quick when I was 13, because that was a little crazy.
Okay.
And, of course, I got pregnant at 16, and I got a lot of dirty looks from people at church. So,
That'll happen.
I went on a path, and I tried Catholicism. That's even more scary, and
Yeah.
and then I tried other religions and stuff, and then I just found paganism, and I thought, well, I don't really want to adopt myself to any specific religion, so I'll just make this a way of life.
Right.
And my son begged me to call your show because I've had a lot of supernatural experiences happening to me. And he wanted me to kind of share with you because I'm confused with you guys as to why you don't believe in the supernatural or have faith in just anything. I mean, because I know faith is tied to religion, but for me, it's not. Because religion is just a made-up, I think religion's a made-up thing to instill fear in people. So I don't really conform to religion. So I don't even know what I am.
Sure.
I'm just a free spirit, I guess.
Yeah.
But there's a couple of times that I've had, I'm not crazy, but I heard voices tell me things like when I was driving one time. I was in the middle of separating from my husband, and I was driving from Seattle to Oregon, and I kept hearing somebody say, stop.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, no, I got to go down there with my son. And it became nighttime, and in Chehalis, Centralia area is really dark. And I heard another voice say, turn on your high beams, because I only had one headlight.
Okay.
I turned on my high beams. There's a 5-point buck in the road. Okay. And I hit it, and it moved my car all the way over to the shoulder, perfectly parallel parked. 2 seconds later, when the car stopped, a semi went past me. I mean, I would have been killed if I hadn't turned on my high beams and listened to that voice. I believe that there are things out there. I don't know what they are. I can't explain it. He definitely wanted me to mention to you about a time where my
well, hold on.
son
Before we
had
move on, let's break down what we've gotten so far. Just to see if we're following. So it sounds to me like you believe that there's something, but you don't know what it is, right?
Right, exactly.
And the reason that you think that is because there have been times that you've heard voices, and at those times something happened that convinced you. I'm confused why you think that there's something supernatural connected to these voices.
It was like a guy telling me to do something to save my life, to protect me. It was like a protecting spirit, I guess you could say. Do you want to call it that? I call them guardians or whatever.
Why do you call it that?
I feel like because they're good spirits.
How do you know that, though? But why do you think good spirit? Like, why does your mind go there? Because I've heard...
Because I don't know any other way to describe it.
Okay.
Other than there's a presence with me that has always been there since I was a child, and has always guided me and told me things. And when I obey...
So how do you know that there's a presence? What is this presence? What do you mean by there's a presence?
I can describe it as a sensation of feeling like there's someone with me.
Okay, so what if I were to tell you that I feel like there's someone with me, and I know that someone is Mary Poppins?
That's great.
Is it?
If she's helping you out and saving your life, that's awesome.
But is she? Hold on, but is she?
She could be.
If I feel like she is and I think that she is, does that mean that she is?
Well, there's something there.
How do you know that, though?
I don't know.
So I may feel like something's there, but does that mean... So have you ever... So actually, I watched a TED Talk, and it was about being wrong. Do you have any idea what it feels like to be wrong?
Oh, yes.
How does it feel?
It feels horrible.
Oh, right. So describe some of the feelings that you get when you're wrong.
It makes me feel completely empty, completely lost, and completely alone.
Okay. So what you just described is what it feels like when you discover that you're wrong. When you're wrong and you don't know that you're wrong yet, it actually feels exactly like being right. And that's something that really made an impression on me, because every time you've ever found out you were wrong, didn't you think that you were right before?
But if I had it turned on my high beams when the voice told me to, I would have been killed. So how would I be wrong? I would be dead.
What I'm saying is that you might be wrong about what it is that's talking to you. It could have been some kind of intuition. It could have been that you've been driving enough times, that you've had enough experience, that you've learned that when you see a flicker of a light in the distance, then subconsciously you understand that there might... Hold on, let me finish. Subconsciously, there might be something coming at you, and there might be some kind of adrenaline rush that subconsciously you understand that there's something coming, and you respond, and it sounds like it's a voice, but something that it's hard to understand unless you look into it is that the human brain is very, very easily fooled. There are a lot of times that we think that something is happening when actually something else is happening, and so I'm just trying to figure out. Hold on, I'm just trying to figure out if there is something out there. Pardon me. If there is something out there, say it's supernatural, say it's a god, say it's a deity, say whatever it is, I want to know what it is, because if it's this important that it's directing people in what they're supposed to do in their life and how they're supposed to end their life and how they're supposed to affect other people and change the world and whatever, if it's this big of a deal, I want to know what's really out there, and I want to know what the rules are, right? And so I found out that when I started believing a completely different religion from you, but when I started to do the research and try to figure out what's actually real, because I want to know what the real rules are, I found out that there's nothing out there. There's no reason to believe any of it. And so I just want to know, why do you think that this voice in your head is some higher power? I mean, I just want to know why you think that it could not possibly be your own head.
The reason why I know for a fact that it's not something in my head is because there was an incline in the road. The deer was over the incline. There would have been no way I would have seen a flicker of light of his eyeballs or anything until I switched on my high beams. There was no way of me seeing, or even my brain recognizing that I was in some sort of danger. And the voice I heard was not my own. It was
no, that's okay.
Else.
It doesn't have to be your own head. I actually close my eyes sometimes and I hear voices all the time.
Well, auditory hallucinations are the most common, if I'm right, I might be wrong, but I think that auditory hallucinations are the most common form of hallucination. And it can be a result of almost anything, of an emotional stress, of being too tired, of being...
too emotionally stimulated,
too hungry, and then it could also be from if you have head trauma. A lot of people who at some point in their life have had head trauma also have auditory hallucinations sometimes, and it's not your voice that you hear; it's other voices, or it's something. And I mean, the high beams thing is interesting because for me, that was a very big deal when I was learning how to drive, like always turn on your high beams. Like it's kind of drilled into you. So at some point, it could have been, and I'm not saying this is for sure because we don't know for sure, right? There's no way to know. But it could have been that your subconscious was like, oh, wait, did I turn my high beams on? Because I'm driving in the dark on this road, and I've been down that road. It is very dark and kind of scary. Did I turn my high beams on? And it could have been your own subconscious doing that. And that would make a lot more sense, given what we know about the world, than someone else telling you that. So that's where we're coming from.
My question for you guys is, if I was to provide some sort of irrefutable, I can't even say that word.
It's okay.
Proof. Thank you. That there was something supernatural. Okay, for example, my son Carter had his girlfriend over here after my father passed away.
Hold on, before we change the subject and give a different example, can we stick with this one? Because it sounds like this is why you believe in something supernatural, right? So it's more things like this, right? It's more things where you heard voices and...
Well, this is part of that. This will actually...
Oh, it's part of the same story? Okay, I'm sorry.
More. Yeah, no problem. I did a seance for his girlfriend. I never did one before. I didn't ask her any questions. I never met this girl before. And I did a seance for her, and I spoke with her father, which I didn't even know who he was. I didn't know anything about this girl. And I was able to communicate with her dead father to her things that only they knew together. And then when I was done with that, I had to call my friend who had to help me because he was a high priest in the coven.
Have you ever heard of James Randi?
Yeah.
There's some videos that you might want to try looking up on YouTube, but by James Randi, because he does a really good job debunking things, magic tricks and things like that. Because once again, the mind is very easily.
I'd be more than willing to prove it.
Then isn't the James Randi Foundation still going?
I believe so.
There's $1 million for you.
I don't know if the $1 million thing is still.
Oh, it's not still there? Okay.
I don't want $1 million.
Oh, okay.
So you mentioned a high priest and a coven. Is that correct?
Correct.
So you're involved in a community where they talk about this kind of thing a lot, right?
I was, yeah.
Okay. And before that, you were involved in other religions where they talked about other kinds of metaphysical, mystical things, right?
Correct.
Okay. So I would
find my own path.
Right. And I congratulate you for getting out of those other religions because that's a big step. My concern is that you may be taking some of these things that they are telling you and instilling in you, maybe allowing them to influence the way you're perceiving events that are happening. And I'm not saying that you're...
How would I contact a person I don't even know is dead to a person I don't even know who's alive? And
I don't know. I don't know that you did that. But I also don't know how you would prove to me that you did.
I'd do a seance for you. You could pick anybody you want that I don't know. Anybody you want. I don't know anything as long as they have a dead friend or relative, and I would do a seance for you and prove it. I don't want any recognition. I don't want any money or anything.
Well, I mean, she wants a little recognition because she's calling the show and advertising.
So wait, so then are you telling me not that you heard you? So hold on. So you heard a voice when you were driving down the road, and all it said, it was a male voice, it was not yours, and it said stop.
It was a female voice.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was a female voice that was not yours, and it said stop, and it saved your life, right?
It said stop, and it kept going. Then it said to turn on my high beams.
It said stop, and it said turn on your high beams?
Yeah, I was in Tacoma when it said stop. And
Okay.
It said it 3 times, and I kept going. And then in Chehalis, right up as it was going up a hill, it said turn on your high beams. And I turned on my high beams, and there was a deer in the left-hand lane.
So let's say that
And
this
I-
proves that there is something that talks to you.
Yes.
Now what?
Enjoy it?
I guess.
I just feel bad for people who don't have any faith that there's anything out there.
Why?
Well, it doesn't seem like what part of this is faith for you? You seem to be giving us.
I actually tried to be atheist and not believe in anything.
See, that's the thing is we don't try to be atheists. I found out that I am one after I was one because I learned the definition of it and then realized that it's not a positive claim that I know for a fact that there are no gods. It's simply the fact that I have done research and I've been trying to figure out what's out there, and I found out that there's no logical reason to believe that there is one. And then I looked up...
I don't know if there's a God.
I don't either.
I really don't.
I don't either. That's why I'm an agnostic atheist. Means I don't know, but I don't think so.
I think
Because
my mom might be right about that. There might be a whole bunch of them, but I don't know for the sure.
But why think that there's anything? So you think that there's something because you hear voices. That's interesting.
Well, okay, Angela, real quick, because I wanna understand this. You're giving us an experience that you had, and I'll grant that you had this experience. There's no way I can know for sure, but okay, you've had this experience. But then you talk about faith. So I'm wondering where the faith comes in. Because what about that experience is supplemented by faith? Are you having faith in what you think caused it, or how is the faith coming into this?
My faith, I think, is the best way I can articulate it is that I believe in what's around me. I try to be a very factual person, and I try to believe in what I feel and see and hear. And if it's genuine, and I can usually tell if it's genuine and everything. I don't know how to explain how I can tell. I just can. I don't know how to explain that I have certain gifts of prophetic dreams and things like that. My mom knows that I have premonitions. And she's Mormon, like full-fledged Mormon. And my son, who told me to call here, he wanted me to call to help maybe open people's minds to realize that there is, I don't know how to prove it, but there is definitely something out there.
It's interesting.
I don't know what it is. Maybe it's energy. I don't know.
I mean, maybe. So that's the thing is I've been learning a lot about quantum physics because I love space. And apparently, if you go and watch, there's tons of documentaries that you can watch, but there's something called dark energy and dark matter. And those are two things that are out in the universe that occupy a lot of space, and we don't understand them. The only reason we gave them the names dark energy and dark matter is because we couldn't think of anything else to call it, and we don't know what it is. So could it be that? I mean, I don't know. That's the thing, is it could be anything, but I'm not going to say that it's a deity. I'm not going to say that it's a god. I'm not going to say that it's, a higher power. It just is. It's just the universe, and it's just existing, and it's just there. And things happen and things don't happen, and I don't understand why I have to claim that I know why everything's happening when I don't.
Yeah, I wish I could explain. What you just said was perfect, because that's exactly how I feel. It's just something is just there. I don't know what it is. I don't know who it is. If it is a who, I don't know how to explain it. I don't know. It's a bummer for me, because I feel like people think I'm crazy.
No, you're not crazy. You're just human.
But I feel bad when people don't believe in anything.
Don't feel bad. Because that's the thing, is nobody doesn't believe in anything.
Right.
And when we're talking about atheists, the claim of an atheist is just that we don't accept your claim that there is something supernatural out there. It's not that we don't believe in anything.
Supernatural. It's if you, Angela, if you don't believe in a god, that one does exist for sure, then you're also an atheist.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's all it means.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Yeah, I didn't know that. My son, he's autistic. He doesn't really explain things very well.
That's okay. Well, a lot of people have confusion about what atheist means and the different definitions, but most atheists will tell you that it's just we don't believe for sure that there is a God, right? And there might be, we just won't know and can't know. Yeah. And so we don't believe in it. And that sounds like what you are too. So welcome to the club, I guess.
Yeah, you can, and you can use the word or you can not use the word. It's completely up to you. You can do whatever you want.
I didn't know that, because I told the lady the person on the phone before I got in the queue, I don't know what I am, because I was Christian and now I'm kind of pagan, but I use that more as a lifestyle rather than a religion.
That's fine.
Aliens could be God for all I know. I don't.
That's what I'm saying is, there could be aliens. I mean, if you want aliens, just go look in the ocean.
Oh, yeah. We know nothing about
crazy-looking creatures in the ocean.
Crazy.
Anyway, so we're going to move on to other callers, but thank you so much for calling and sharing your views, and see if you can do a little more research and figure out what is there, and then we can talk about it some more.
Yeah, maybe check out auditory hallucinations and just do some research and see if you can maybe check one of the boxes and maybe weed some stuff out that way.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks for calling, Angela.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. That's another thing, is that memory is also tricky.
Right, because you don't remember memories correctly. You remember remembering your memory.
And every time you remember it differently. That's something I learned on Brain Games and TED Talks and things like that, is because when you remember a memory, you know those games where you play and they change like one detail of it and then they flash it again and they change another detail of it and they flash it again, you change another detail, and you can't tell the difference because your brain it's not designed to pick that kind of thing up because it doesn't care. And so it's like, well, every time you remember something, that happens again and again. And that, she could have heard something. I mean, she could have heard something on the radio and it sounded like it came out of her head. I mean, you just never, it could be anything.
It could be. And also, the way that you word things matters too. So that's why I was curious, because she mentioned stuff about covens and priests and stuff like that. If you guys probably know the car experiment where they showed a car crash and they used the word when the cars bumped into each other for some and then smashed into each other for others, and the people remembered more broken glass that wasn't there.
It changes your memory.
If they heard smashed instead of bumped. So even the way that you use words for yourself with the people around you will influence the way you perceive the world.
And if you think that you have some kind of epiphany and you start sharing it with all your friends and start telling everybody about it, and you tell it 50,000 times, and every time you tell it, it gets a little bit more dramatic, well...
It's a fish story.
Yeah, so... All right, who do you want to talk to next? We've got...
It looks like we've got one theist on the line right now.
Let's go to an atheist then. Let's go to George in Oklahoma. George, can you hear us?
Hello?
Hi, you're on with Jenna and V. It looks like...
Okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you. It looks like you're in a relationship with a believer.
I am, but it's very unconventional. Just quick backstory. I'm 42. I married really young when I was 18, and me and her, we lasted a couple of years and got divorced. After that, I ended up in a relationship with a man 25 years older than me.
Okay.
We moved here to Oklahoma, became pretty successful, had a good life. He died of a heart attack 2 years ago.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And ever since then, we both believe in God. We always
Believed or believe? I'm sorry.
Well, that's why I'm calling. I was raised not to go to church every week, but my parents are religious in their own way. I have an older sister that's 20 years older than me, but she's a Lutheran pastor and has been pretty much my whole life. And so I talked to her about some things, but so we've never really been like super religious, but when me and my partner were coming out or were being found out, his church, who he was very much involved in, the senior elders there got together, kind of made a trap for us, called us both down there, belittled us. They even told his wife about it. They didn't even give him a chance to. It was awful. He never set foot in church again. But he still maintained that he believed in God till the day he died.
Right.
I go through a period about every 10 years where I believe in God, but I also believe what I can see and test and my knowledge, and so it wavers. Now, current history, I didn't know this, but I'm in a relationship with another guy who I didn't know he was married, but he is, and he's also very heavily into the Baptist religion. I mean, so much so, he even admitted to me that it's like a cult.
Okay.
Because his job, his life, it's all about the Baptists. You have to, and anyway, I've known him for over a year, and he's almost delusioned himself into believing that he's bad. God's going to, spank him because, our feelings for each other. He has admitted that he's trying to convert me to his way of thinking. He takes me to church on Sunday, and I do enjoy going because I don't get out of my house very often except to go to work. So it's nice being around other people, and I like it when they sing the songs. It's kind of a good energy. It doesn't mean I believe everything thrown at me, but I like to be around people. And I've kind of gotten in the habit of I like to go, but at the same time, I feel like I'm supposed to buy into everything he tells me. And when I try to be rational with him and say, look, I just want to know why you think this. And I'll give, I watch the show a lot. Actually, I discovered you guys on a trip with him about 8 months ago in San Antonio. I was in the hotel room with nothing to do, and I found you guys on YouTube. And I must have watched all day, just struggling with it.
I did the same thing.
Me too.
Yeah, I showed my friend some of the videos, and I said, look, I mean, how can you not entertain the idea, you know, that we might be wrong, or you might be wrong, or not everybody's right? And you know, he's like, because I've experienced God. And I said, well, I thought I did too, but how do you really know? And it's almost like beating my head against a brick wall, and I just don't know what to do.
Yeah. I mean, my first thought would be, I totally get how having a community to go to every Sunday is awesome, because I come here every Sunday and it's awesome.
My partner was everything to me. So after he died, you know, our friends and family, it's like I have nobody but my friend, and that's the only activity that I get to do.
Right.
So.
Yeah. I would first suggest maybe trying to find maybe a Unitarian Universalist church, or go on Meetup and find maybe some secular groups in your area, because I guarantee there are some out there. You just have to, you know, use the Google machine. But also, if a partner is trying to force you to think a certain way about anything, not just religion, and gets upset if you have opinions of your own or opinions that conflict, that's a very, very big red flag. Not just for that conversation, but in general. So I don't know your relationship.
My life is in chaos right now, and he keeps saying, you know, like my car went out last week, and it turned out to be something really minor. But at the time, we didn't know that, and he's like, you know, on the way down to Toyota, you really just need to pray for a service rep that's going to be good to you. And I mean, at the time, you know, I'm upset because I just bought this car a month ago.
Right.
And so, I mean, I just get tired of being told that I'm not praying hard enough, or I, you know, need to let God into my heart, when I already feel like I've done that my entire life, off and on. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call myself a full-blown Christian by any means, but, you know, my partner believed in God, and I want to believe in God, just because I want to know my partner's okay. He's dead. It's very traumatic, but at the same time, I just can't buy into so much of it, you know?
So your partner knows that you don't believe right now, right?
Well, my partner, he died 2 years ago, but at the time that he died, we both believed in God, but we agreed with each other. And keep in mind, he never set foot in church again because of what happened to us. But he believed that God is good, God will take care of everything, and that's pretty much the extent of where he went with it.
I thought you were in a relationship currently with somebody that's a Baptist.
Well,
that
I
was
am,
separate.
but it's secret. This guy turned out to be married.
So is this the guy that's trying to convert you, or?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. Does this guy know that you don't believe?
He knows I'm struggling with it.
He knows you're struggling.
I'm struggling with it. Some days I'll feel like I really have the Holy Spirit in my heart. I really feel like I do some days. And then other days I'll think, well, I'm just an idiot, because how is that even possible? He got us these workbooks to complete. I forget what it's called.
This guy sounds like
counter.
a project.
It's something that we can do together, an activity that we get together about once a week, and we sit down and do a chapter or two of our own little Bible study.
Right. I mean, it is a project. You know, that's what it is. That's what we're told that it is. It's a game or a test that you're supposed to figure out, right?
Right. I'm just.
Yeah.
I don't.
So I would try, honestly, personally.
Yeah.
Do you want to know what I would do?
Please.
If I was in your shoes, I would tell the person that I'm in the relationship with that I am questioning, and I don't want to be badgered or pushed or taught. I don't want to be taught anything. I want to figure this out myself. And because I'm not going to take anybody else's word for it, right? Because you say that if you feel the Holy Spirit or if you don't, that's something that you feel or you don't. It's not somebody else is going to be able to convince you of that, right? And so I would ask them to stop and see what they do. Because if they don't stop,
right,
then I think that's a pretty big red flag that they have insincere intentions, right?
Yeah.
or
had,
that they value God
discussions
over
with
me or whatever. But if they do stop and they give me space, then I would use that time to actually do whatever work I can and ask as many different people as I can. Because the thing is, if you only ask people from the same church, you're going to get a lot of the same answers because they hear the same preacher talk every Sunday. You know, they talk to each other during donuts and all that. But if you start talking to people from different churches and different denominations and different religions and try to ask them, okay, well, why do you believe that? And why do you believe that? And why do you believe that? And then try to take it in for yourself and then decide, well, what do I believe and why? And I think that's the best way to try to figure out if you believe it, is to ask yourself those questions.
Yeah.
Ask other people those questions, see what they come up with.
Yeah.
I have a problem with the hypocrisy because, like, he's inducted into the Baptist church, but that being said, yes, I go to that church too. I take care of people with disabilities there. However, instead of going to that church most of the time, we go to, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it, Life Church. And we go to Life Church, and he likes going there, and I like going there more too. It's more fun, but so I've attended many different churches with him. It's just he gets to this point where I tell him, like, okay, I'm having trouble believing this. And he says, okay, I'll back off. I'm not going to bring this up anymore. That lasts about a day or two, maybe 3. And then we're back to, did you pray?
Then you know.
It's not going, yeah.
Then you know.
Yeah.
If I would,
I really didn't mean to end up in this situation. I have a very strong, he's my best friend. And,
yeah. Oh, it doesn't mean they're a bad person.
Friend, really.
Right, exactly. And here's the thing. What I would do next, and I think we're going to have to move to some other people, but what I would do at this point is maybe draw some boundaries. You know, don't cut them out or anything, but say, here is where we can go in our conversation, and here is where we can't go. And if they respect that, that's great. If not, then you need to remove yourself a little bit from that friendship because they don't value you as a person with opinions. Also, again, I know it can be difficult to get out there and find new people, but maybe go to a church by yourself or go somewhere else on a Sunday that has a lot of people.
Go to a park.
Yeah, just have these kinds of conversations because it sounds like you're looking for answers, but you're kind of only maybe going to 1 or 2 people. So the more people you go to, the bigger your sample size is going to be, and that's always good because science, right?
I've always been bad about that. I basically needed y'all to tell me to do that. I am awful when it comes to putting myself out there. I really am, and I need to because this life is not. You know, when my partner died, and you know this guy being my only friend, that's not what I pictured my life to be. So. Yeah. I really do appreciate you guys' input.
Yeah,
well, thank you for calling.
And call in again if you've got more questions or let us know how you're doing. Yeah.
I will. Thank you guys so much.
Nice talking to you, George.
Bye.
Bye. What a nice guy.
Yeah.
Let's go to Justin. Let's see. Justin, can you hear me?
Hello?
Hey.
Hi, Justin.
You're talking to Jenna and V. It says that there's a purpose and meaning in the universe, which means that God exists. It is a proven fact. Awesome.
I'm sorry, I'm speaking to Janet.
Jenna and V.
Jenna and V, how are you doing?
Good. Thanks for asking.
So just full disclosure, not only am I claiming that, but I'm also claiming that I'm God's messenger. I have a YouTube channel called God's Messenger.
Oh, I think I've heard of you. You've been on the show before, have you not?
Oh, no, I haven't. This is my first time.
Okay.
Was another God's messenger, apparently.
Well, he has many.
Okay.
I'm claiming that God has revealed the universe to me, and I've explained how the universe works.
Wait, what does that mean, revealed the universe to you? What does that mean?
I had epiphany. It came to me. Like I understood
came to you?
How the universe works.
How the universe works? Like a math equation or?
No, like the truth about how the universe works, how everything works, the depth behind how everything works. So the universe just means everything.
Like a map?
Yes. Well, I draw a map in my video, P2, how the universe works. You could YouTube search it, P2, how the universe works.
Okay, so why should we believe that you had this epiphany and that it's from God?
Okay, so first of all, when I say that I'm God's messenger, all I mean is that I'm speaking truths. So if someone were to
That's
tell
not
you-
the same thing. Those are two very different
Why
things.
wouldn't you just say you're speaking truths?
Well, because the truth is something that I'm submitting to. So
Wait, hold on. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, honestly, I'm sorry. When you're talking about somebody or something, revealing the universe to you, and you're God's messenger, but that only means that you're speaking in truth. Like, why are you going to great lengths to put this into, like, fluffy language?
Okay, so I don't mean to put anything in fluffy language, so I'll explain it perfectly.
Cool.
The fact that God, I don't mean to put anything in fluffy language.
Yeah, I just
what I'm
prefer,
saying is that-
normal, like, what do you believe?
Well, no problem. Well, the reason why I call the thing that revealed to me, this thing God, is because I'm in submission to it. So anything that you're in submission to is called a God. God is just a title that you put on things, like president.
Oh, so anything that we are submissive to, we can call a God. So that's the definition that we're working with. Yeah, I can work with that. There are things that I submit to, and I believe in that.
Yeah, and completely give yourself to. So God's plural.
Wait, completely give yourself to? What does that mean?
So I completely submit to it. So anything that is true, I believe. No matter what it is, as long as it's true, I believe it.
How do you know if it's true?
Yeah.
Well, in the same way that you know that anything is true. So
I
if
don't know anything is true necessarily.
That's true. We're both agnostics.
Okay, well, I have some pills for you guys that will...
Why would I
grant
take
you
your
millions-
pills if you're talking about...
Well, no, but the pills that I'm selling you are true. How do you know that they're not true?
I don't know that they
That's
are,
not
so I'm
how
not
it
putting them in
works.
my body.
No, that's not how it works. You don't have to prove something is not true. You have to prove that something is true.
I believe I agree with you 100%. All
Okay.
I'm saying is that we are rational people who decide things are true and not true all day, every day.
Right.
We
So
are
people try to
people
sell
that...
stuff-
Hold on. I'm trying to follow you. Can you just slow down just a little bit? So we are rational. Some people are rational. Some people are not.
Okay, so rational people make decisions about what is true every day. So I would...
So what?
Functionally true, yes.
Let's define true.
Right.
So truth is the opposite of what is false.
The opposite
if-
of what is not true.
Okay,
So what is
false?
truth? What is
Okay,
false?
so what I'm saying... Okay. So what I'm saying again is that because I'm claiming to be God's messenger or the presenter...
You're not answering my question, though.
Question me. No, yes, I'm trying to. I'm sorry. But I could provide evidence for anything that I'm saying. So if someone is claiming to have a truth claim, they could provide evidence for what they're claiming.
Right.
If someone is lying, then they cannot provide evidence for their lie.
Well, they can try.
Okay, so we know.
Hold on.
We know.
Hold on. So if I can't prove to you that Little Mermaid doesn't exist, does that mean that she does?
I'm sorry. You cannot prove that Little Mermaids exist. Well, we know that Little Mermaids are an imagination of someone.
Hold on. I'm asking you a question. If I can't prove to you that Little Mermaids do not exist, if I can't prove that, does that mean that they do?
Well, no. The fact that you can't doesn't mean anything because I know from my own knowledge that Little Mermaids
So
are
you're
an
the deciding factor because you're God's messenger,
No, not
right?
me at all. Not me at all. Not me at all. No, not me at
Okay.
all. I don't matter at all. I
Okay.
don't matter at all.
Okay.
Nothing does not matter. The only thing that matters is a rational mind, and a rational mind.
But you just said all humans are
imaginary-
rational minds.
No. Well, then I apologize. I mean that there are rational minds. Like in a court of law, there's a reasonable person standard. What does a reasonable person know? So as a society, we know that a reasonable person should know certain things.
Well, but reasonable
That's
people
how we
can
know
be
things in
wrong.
law. Yeah, exactly. But in law, we know that there are reasonable people. And so reasonable people would know that there are no Little Mermaids, like you just try to explain.
But so hold on. So when we're talking about what reasonable people believe and don't believe,
I would posit that reasonable people don't believe that you're God's messenger. How do we get around that?
I would say it's reasonable to believe that there's no reason to believe in any gods.
Absolutely. But you saying that there's no reason to believe in gods is like me saying there's no reason to believe in presidents. God is
Why
just a
would you
title.
say that? Why would you say that those are like the same thing when you can't prove that that you can prove that presidents exist, but you can't prove that gods exist?
Okay, presidents.
We got all this far just from trying to get him to define truth.
It's a journey.
Yeah, I know, but
It is.
So you're asking, how do I know presidents exist and gods don't exist?
I didn't ask you that.
Presidents are just gods. Are
I'm
just a
telling
title
you that when you say that for me not to believe in a God is like for you to not believe in a president, I'm saying, how can you say that? That's not the same thing. I can prove that presidents exist, and nobody has ever been able to prove that any gods exist.
Well, that's a false claim. I'm sorry. No, don't just.
Then we wouldn't have a show.
Yeah, I know, but God.
Several
is the
shows.
title.
Actually, you know what? I actually really like talking to you, and I really appreciate your honesty. You're doing great, and I really appreciate you. Eric Murphy is here, and he would really like to talk to you on Talk Heathen next week. They come on at 1 p.m. Central. Where are you? You're in New Jersey. Yeah, so they'll be on at 1 p.m. Central, and Eric Murphy would love to talk to you.
Okay, my YouTube channel is God's Messenger. You could contact me at that email, God. Yeah,
okay.
You could contact me there.
I probably won't reach out to you, but if you want to call Talk Heathen next week, Eric would love to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll talk to y'all later. Thanks. Okay. Wow. Oh, we got somebody named Heathen Hammer. I like your name, Heathen Hammer. How are you?
I'm fine. Thanks for having me on the show.
Awesome. It says that there's a possibility of a higher power, and your dog had an experience?
Yeah. I think there's a possibility of a higher power. I don't know if there is or not. I think, there's a possibility for a lot of things, I guess.
So if there's why should we explore it any further?
Well, I guess it's just seeking knowledge and
because I'll accept that there's a possibility. I'm already with you there. There's a possibility.
But that's it. Yeah, I'm not gonna. I can't. I'm not really. I really wanted to talk about my dog's experience personally.
What do you mean?
Well, I had a dog for years.
But what experience? What kind of experience? How are you going to talk about your dog's experience? That's what I'm confused about.
All right, let me see if I can explain it.
Sure.
I raised the dog since he was a puppy. He's gone now. He's a pit bull terrier. Very good member of the family. I love that dog.
Mm-hmm.
One day I'm watching a movie, and it was the Sixth Sense, as a matter of fact. So I'm sitting there and I'm watching a movie, and all of a sudden the dog was laying on the floor on the rug. I had a little spot for him to lay. Yeah, he could go anywhere he wanted, but he had a little spot I made for him, and that's where he liked to go. And all of a sudden he got up and he's looking up at the corner above the TV.
Okay.
And he just starts growling and starts going nuts. I'm like, what the hell's up with the dog, I'm looking at him, is there something I'm not seeing? There's a spider crawling around or something.
Yeah.
And it was the weirdest thing, and he's just barking and growling up at the corner, and all of a sudden he ran behind the chair. I'm calling the dog. His name was Duke. I said, Duke, come here, Duke, come on. And he wouldn't come out. And then he'd peek out and he'd look up at the corner. And he got, my dog was a brave dog, and it was like he was scared. And he'd go back behind the chair. And I'm like, what the heck is this dog doing? I'm looking up and there's nothing in it. I can't see nothing in the corner. And he looks back out again, looks dead up at the corner and ducks behind the chair. Then after like maybe 5 minutes of this going on, I call him and he comes out and he's slinking, like he's terrified. And as he's slinking, I'm watching him and I could see he's got his eyes over up at the corner, and he comes up and he buries his head where my back is meeting the couch, like he's trying to hide his head, Mm-hmm. And then I moved and I got him up and he refused to look at the corner. And then all of a sudden he became normal and he's looking around, and, I thought that was a pretty weird thing. Then another time.
Well, so hold on. So what do you think that's evidence for?
I don't know.
I think that's a pretty good answer.
Yeah. I'd agree with that summation.
I mean, I've seen lots of animals do lots of weird things like that. I mean, I've had animals my whole life.
That's not the first time I've heard that kind of a
my
story.
My cat does stuff like that, too. Yeah. My cat likes to play with air.
Oh, they run around. Oh, that's funny when they do that.
Oh, yeah. Like he'll chase air. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't know. And there was another time when I got up. Okay.
I think we're going to move on to other callers, but thank you for calling. And maybe, I don't know.
I mean, I think you're on the right track. Yeah. Saying I don't know is probably the best thing you can say when you come across something that puzzles you like that. Yeah. With no explanation.
But just keep asking questions and keep, maybe look into it. Because I found that whenever I have a question that's random like that, like I was walking up to work and there was just like an awesome sunrise one morning and it was crazy. I was like, I wonder what makes the sunrise more, colorful one day versus another day. And so I just started looking into it. And instead of going, oh, well, that's because Jesus is with me today. It's like, it's apparently because the more pollution in the air, the more colorful it is. So just, asking questions like that, you can learn. Yeah. There are people who specialize their entire lives in specific things like the bumblebees and, water particles in the clouds. And, there are tons of people who study this stuff and put it out there on the internet. And I think that we're so freaking lucky these days that we just have all of this information at our fingertips. So, yeah, just keep asking questions and see what you can come up with. Thanks for calling.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Talk to you later. Oh, thanks. Okay. So we've got... Let's go to David.
Yes, let's go to David.
Hi, David.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good. You're talking to Jenna and V. It looks like the ACA coincides with the Church of Satan. I didn't know that. Everything you espouse is textbook satanic. Okay, where are you getting this from?
The testimony of the high priest of the Satanic Church and quotes from Anton LaVey.
Okay. He called us out and said that we took his stuff?
Is he filing a copyright lawsuit?
He went back to the 60s.
Back in the 60s
y'all
we did?
kind of hijacking what he was already espousing.
We weren't open in the 60s.
Yeah. Okay, so why call in about this?
Yeah, did you have a question?
Well, I'm just like, for somebody who doesn't have religious views, what y'all expose and what y'all sit there and present on the show coincides with exactly what Anton LaVey, a known Satanist, preaches.
Oh, well, maybe I should look him up.
Anton LaVey is pretty cool.
Yeah. I've actually heard some really good things about the Satanic Temple. Have you heard anything that's bad?
Well, it says right here.
But have you heard anything that's bad about the Satanic Temple?
Of course.
Oh, okay. Like what?
It goes against everything that I believe in, for one.
Is that bad?
Jesus Christ.
Wait, so it's bad to disagree with you?
Well, see, the thing is you don't have a complete lexicon of all knowledge, so actually you can't make an opinion or an assertion on anything.
So why
are you talking to us?
Well, like I said, I want to know how y'all sit there and act like you're coming original, but you're just promoting satanic propaganda on your TV show.
Satanic propaganda? What did I say that's satanic?
Well, give me a second. I'll read it to you.
Sure.
LaVey sought to cement his belief system within the secularist worldview that derived from natural science, thus providing him with an anti-theistic basis with which to criticize Christianity and other supernaturalist beliefs.
Yeah, I'm with him so far.
He legitimized his religion by highlighting what he claimed was its irrational nature, contrasting this with what he saw as the supernaturalist irrationality of established religions.
So, question for you. If the ACA and the Church of Satan, or the Satanic Temple, I'm not quite sure.
Satanic Temple. Church of Satan, that's what it says. Sorry.
I'm not sure which one Anton LaVey is actually.
I don't know which one.
The founder of. But if we have both come to the conclusion that religion is bad by ourselves, and these are two very, we've both come to that conclusion, do you think maybe it might be true?
What I'm saying is without a complete lexicon of all knowledge, you don't have a basis to make any kind of truth assertion.
Wait, so hold on. So are you? Wait, hold on. Before you keep going, I'm going to take apart what you just said. Can you work with me here, please?
Yeah.
You just said that I can't possibly know what's true.
No, you can't.
Okay, so.
How
This
do
is
we
gonna be
know
fun.
anything that you say is going to be true?
Well,
then?
let's go with.
See, the
What?
difference
Hold
is
on.
I
I know.
have faith in the one who's told me what is true.
Wait, what?
And faith is easy to prove.
Faith is easy to prove.
You exercise it every day.
You don't know me.
No, it's easy. Have you ever flown on a plane?
What?
Have you ever flown on an
Maybe.
airplane, taken a trip on an airplane?
Maybe. Would you
Okay,
know?
did you
Would you know that?
The pilot was in the cockpit with the door closed flying the plane, right?
Wait, but if I tell you that I did, then I don't know what's true. So that means I didn't, right?
What I'm sitting there, I'm giving you an example, an elementary example.
I know, and I'm pointing out the
like,
ridiculousness of what you're claiming, which is that I can't possibly know anything that's true because I disagree with you.
No, what I'm sitting there saying is until you have a complete lexicon of all knowledge.
A complete lexicon of all knowledge. Where'd you get this lexicon of all
Perfect
knowledge?
example, like the philosophers of
No, I'm asking you a question. Where did you
they
get this
believe it.
lexicon of all knowledge?
You could, okay, take science, for instance. If they
So
do
where did you
everything,
get
then
this
why would they keep
lexicon
experiment?
of all
I'm trying to
knowledge?
explain.
You're going to prove it
What
with
I'm
science?
Yet science is sitting there constantly doing experiments because they don't have a complete lexicon of all knowledge. They don't know everything. They haven't explored the whole universe. They haven't seen everything.
Exactly.
So therefore, they have to keep experimenting and until they can sit there and come to complete knowledge.
So you're pointing out the problem with science, right? Now I'm asking you, if science, the problem with science is that it can't prove this lexicon of all knowledge. I'm asking, where's this lexicon of all knowledge?
It's in what I'm saying, and what I'm trying to tell you is
I don't know why you won't just tell me where it is or what it is, but. Hello?
Okay, I'll try to explain this again.
Please.
The science know everything.
I don't know why you're answering my question with a
yes or no
question.
question. The
I
science-
asked you
the
a question
science
first.
knows
Well, if
everything.
you don't answer my question, then I'm going to have my first fucking hang up.
Like I said, you're backed into a corner. Go ahead and hang up. Go ahead.
All right. All right. So, this lexicon of all knowledge, when you find it, bring it up to the ACA.
Yeah,
we'll look
for
over it
sure.
with you. There's plenty of people here that will be able to go over it with you.
Oh my
and
gosh.
then-
Is it the Book of Eric?
Oh my God, it
Bet
is.
you anything.
Well, but I don't know because I don't know anything. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Sorry, that was just ridiculous.
That was
Okay.
bracing.
Jacob. Jacob, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hi, you're on with Jenna and V.
Hello, Jenna and V. How are you?
I'm pretty
Doing
good,
good.
but
How
it
are
looks like you're having some trouble letting go of Judaism.
Not quite.
No?
Not quite. I actually let go a couple of years ago. I was religious and I became an atheist.
Okay.
But I tried to do it fast, and the reason that I'm calling is I was able to convert, forgive my English, but convert the other way, making my friends, some of them not religious, but some of them have some questions or things that I don't have answers for. And I'm not sure if you know that. Maybe you can help me on that. But on the Jewish religious, there's something that says that in the Bible you have two things that you can find the Bible wrong completely. Only two things. This is the claim. Two things that if you find them wrong, that everything is wrong. There's no God. Now I know that even though even if we prove that the Bible is not written by a human being, it still doesn't say that there is God. But for me, it's a problem that I cannot find anything against it. So see if you can help me on that. So it says on two things. One of them, it's impossible to prove, and that's if you donate 10% of what you earned, you are you have to be rich or something like that. So that's, for me, it's not even worth the response on it. But
Wait,
the
I'm
other
sorry.
one
I just
is
want to make
actually-
sure I'm following you. You're saying that I don't know what you're getting at. I'm so sorry.
The religious in Jewish Bible.
Mm-hmm. In the Jewish Bible, it says that the Christian Bible is wrong?
No, not nothing to do with the Christian Bible. It's the Bible. It says that if you find there are two places in the Bible that it says that God says.
If you prove these things wrong in the Bible, then that proves that there's no God.
Yes.
Okay.
And one of them, if you donate 10% of what you earned, it's a guarantee for you to be rich.
Oh, okay.
I'm not going to respond to that. That's not worth it.
Yeah, no, it's not.
The other one is actually hard.
Okay.
And forgive my English for that. I'm going to try.
Yeah.
But it says that a fish has a fin and scale.
Mm-hmm.
And it says that if you find a fish that doesn't have, that has scales and doesn't have fins, then there's no God.
I can find one.
Which one?
I mean, I can take the fins off of a fish.
No, it's meaning that it's about kosher, man. That they tell.
Oh, it has to be born that way. Okay.
Yeah, it has to be born that way, and that they tell you even if you cut a fish and you find that it has scales, it has to have a fin. And they actually tried to disprove it, and they found that they have like more than 30,000 species, and none of them had it.
Okay.
Scales and no fin.
Cool.
And for me, it's very hard, and I'm not sure what to answer.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of claims in a lot of Bibles that are, outrageous. Like I don't know much about the Jewish Bible, so I personally can't go into a lot of details because I've never read it. I've never been to a synagogue or anything like that. But I know a lot about the Christian Bible, and I know that there's a lot of things in there that are really weird, like, that women are dirty when they're menstruating. It's like, I don't understand why that would be in there. I don't understand why that would be a thing, And so when I hear things like, oh, well, if you find a fish that doesn't have any fins or scales, it's like, it's just as ridiculous of a claim. Like, why would you say that? Where do you get this stuff from, Well,
I think it's probably a very...
To be... Mm-hmm. Sorry?
I would say, so how about this? How about if you can find a horse that has wings,
right?
Then you can prove that I am not God.
Yeah.
I am God until you find a horse that has wings. You can say that about anything, and it doesn't prove anything. I think it's probably just making up. I don't know. It's a.
I mean, yeah. I think it's just a silly book.
Well, yeah.
It's actually not bad. The horse without.
Yeah,
wings.
that's a good.
Yeah. So say okay, fine. Until I find a fish that has scales and no fins, God is God. But until I find a horse with wings, there is also a God-eating penguin named Steve.
Yeah, she came up with a much better.
So you can make up one too about anything. You can say, you have to give me $10 every week until you find a horse with wings.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, guys.
And the other one is close to the $10. That's
right?
Yeah, there you go.
Well, does that help?
It's not bad. Yeah, I can use the wings and the horse.
Yeah. Try it out and then call us back and let us know what they say.
Great. Thank you very much for your show, and I appreciate it a lot. I think it's good.
All right, nice talking to you, Jacob. All right, we're moving along.
Okay.
That was a good one. Horse with wings. Fish with no scales.
Like, you can make up a random scenario and say, until you prove this wrong, then I'm right.
Yeah.
But that's just...
That's like when pigs fly.
Right, exactly.
All right, so let's go to Lou. Lou, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, hello. You're talking to Jenna and V. And it says here you have a personal experience with the Christian God?
Yes, that's what I'm calling.
Awesome.
Okay. The reason I'm calling is because I listen to I discovered you guys a few weeks ago, and I listened to a lot of the clips on YouTube. And a lot of the objections, I admit that some of them I don't have. I admit that I don't have all of the answers. I may have some of them, but not all of the answers to the objections that atheists have. With that said, I have had a personal, several actually, but one in particular that I'm thinking of, a personal experience with God. And when I say God, I mean the Christian God, Jesus, etc. And it's something that hasn't happened yet, but it's something that's going to happen to me in the public view in the future.
Oh.
And my question, the reason why I'm calling, is this is my question. If I were to record myself and show the date, like say, hey, this is today, this is something that's going to happen to me in the future, and the only reason I know this is going to happen is because God told me, and it's something that, in my opinion, and I believe the opinion of most people, would be something that I wouldn't know unless God told me. Would that be sufficient evidence for you, or let's say atheists in general, to accept, to say that God is real?
No, for a couple reasons. And this is assuming that the thing then does happen to you later, right?
Yeah, assuming it happens, right.
Yeah, okay.
Assuming I'm being honest and stuff.
So there are a couple things that I would be hesitant about. The first being, if you know a prophecy beforehand, you can then make it happen, which is how a lot of the prophecy in the Bible happened, because people had access to the Old Testament while they were writing the New Testament. And so they could then look at the prophecies that they were told were going to happen and then wrote about them and that they happened. So my first question would be, okay, so this guy either honestly believes that he had this epiphany from Jesus, or is claiming to, I don't know, but he's saying this thing is going to happen to him, and then it happens. My first thought is not, oh, that's clearly prophecy. It's, oh, somehow he made this happen, or he put himself into a situation where that thing could happen.
Okay, and the reason why I'm asking, the reason for the call is because obviously I want to, like before the thing does happen, I would like to find a way to be convincing to atheists to show evidence. So that's why I'm asking the question before it happens. That's why. It's not so much to, it's just to say, like, I know it's going to happen. Let's say, based on my experience, I'm making that claim.
Can I give you...
And I want to have the evidence.
Sorry. So can I give you an example of why I don't think that you would find many atheists who will accept the things that you will probably be coming up with? Can I give you an example, like a metaphor to try to help you visualize why? So if I were to tell you, and I think I've brought up a similar example on this show before, where if I were to tell you that I had a car outside that flies and runs on milk.
Okay.
How could I prove to you that I do, in fact, have that car that flies and runs on milk with your knowledge so far about reality?
Well, okay, well, just to go with your example, I know that cars generally, to my knowledge, don't run on milk and they don't fly.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd have to see the car fly and run on milk, I guess.
Right. So that's like a crazy claim that I would have a car like that, considering what we know about cars and how they run on gasoline and how heavy they are and how they do not fly yet, right?
Sure.
So in order for you to believe that, you would have to go all the way to the extremes of probably seeing it, seeing me put milk in it, seeing it run, right? There would have to be a number of things that I would have to do to convince you that that's not only, that's actually true, right?
Okay.
So using that example, so it's like if you were trying to convince me that you have this God, and this God is watching me at all times. It knows what I'm thinking. It knows what I've thought before. It knows what I'm going to think, what I'm going to do. This to me is an extraordinary claim, much more extraordinary than a car that flies and runs on milk, because I don't even have a way to go and test this. Like, for me to prove to you that it's there, you could go look at it. This isn't even something I could go and find to look at. I have nothing that I can test. I have nothing that I can use to prove it, other than, well, I heard someone who knew someone who said that this thing might have happened a long time ago. And it's like, yeah, but that's not a good enough reason to believe that I have a car that runs on milk or something to that extreme, just, do you see where I'm going with this?
Kind of, not completely, but kind of. And that's why, like I said, that's the reason for the call. So before the thing happens, I'm trying to avoid, criticism from non-believers, and I'm trying to see how best to avoid that before it happens. So you're saying that if I were to record and say, look, this is the date, and this is something that is going to happen to me in the future because God told me so, that wouldn't be sufficient evidence.
Well, no, because God told me so part, I think also. That's the other problem that I have with this. If you said, I know that this thing is going to happen to me, and then it happens to you, and it's not something as mundane as like getting up in the morning or drinking tea or whatever.
It's not it's not like,
yeah, if it's a unique experience, right? And let's grant that you had some kind of premonition about this and then it happens, that still doesn't get me an onlooker to because of God, especially a specific God. That's the jump that you're going to ask atheists to make, apparently, that they're not going to be able to.
That's where you're going to lose us.
Right.
And that's the thing. So if you're, real quick, if your goal is simply to not get criticized, then I would say to stop telling them things. Just ask them what they believe and why they believe it, and put them on the spot. Make them tell you why they don't believe, and go with that.
Well, I haven't put myself out there like that at all.
Okay.
At this point, in that way, when I say criticize, I just mean if I'm making a specific claim, I'm talking about this specific claim, just to say, this is going to happen. I'm telling you the source of my information is from God. I'm trying to avoid criticism of that, to say, because you say, okay, if let's say I make a claim, God told me this, and then it's not something mundane, and I record myself, you said, okay, that wouldn't be sufficient evidence. So I'm trying to figure out what would be sufficient evidence, like in a prophetic type of situation, for that I could present to, let's say, an atheist or a non-believer.
Good Omens. Have you seen Good Omens or read the book?
No, I haven't.
Okay. In the book and TV series, there is a book of prophecy, okay? But the book of prophecy prophesies what I'm doing at every minute. So I'll be reading the book of prophecy, right? And I'll turn the page and it'll go, V, your water is getting, the ice is melting in your water, or whatever, right? And that would be like, what? What is this? How would it know? It's ancient. And yet I turn the page and it says, on this date, you are on the Atheist Experience with Jenna Belk. How would it know that? That might be convincing. But having somebody say something is going to happen and then it happens is not enough for me.
Yeah.
Well, it's something specific. That's what I mean. That's what. So that's what. So
how specific?
If it's something specific,
like, is it going to include a timestamp and a name, and like how specific?
Yeah. Do you mind if we ask what this thing is that's going to happen to you?
I can't reveal it, because if I do, then I disturb the whole. But if I record it, then and show it and show the time that I'm recording it, then that would be.
I mean,
to show that I knew.
See, that's the thing. Photoshop's real.
Yeah, that too. I mean, it's very easy to put a timestamp on a video.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I got to tell you, I don't know what would work, but I also got to say, I don't think I would be convinced.
Okay. Well, I figured I would just ask, but
Okay.
I guess you would have to judge it when it would happen.
Sure, go ahead and post it. Tag us in it. We'll see.
As long as you're safe, don't do anything unsafe.
Yeah.
And if you feel like you're not safe, maybe tell someone.
I mean, you can always email us at tv@atheist-community.org, and we can see if any of the hosts at all, because a lot of people have access to it, so we can see if anybody wants to take you up on it.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay, fair enough. Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for calling, Lou.
Take care. Bye.
I'm a little concerned for him. He's
I kinda wanna know what it
something's going
is.
to happen to me. I'm like, are you okay?
I want to know what it is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've piqued our interest at least.
Right? If we get an email, we'll let you know what happens. Okay, let's go with Luke. Luke, it says here that you are worried about psychopaths that are being controlled by religion. Yeah, me too. What's up? You're talking to Jen and V.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, great. I was worried about psychopaths. I think that psychopaths are people who are otherwise morally underdeveloped in a Piaget developmental sort of way. I think that the narrative of religion is sort of like moral training wheels for them, and I'm worried that by taking away their training wheels, that will have effectively tipped them over. And I don't think there is a effective secular substitute for people who are fundamentally incapable of empathy.
I mean, that's a valid concern. I don't think that last bit I agree with.
Yeah.
But everything up until then, I do. I think that there are definitely some people who use religion as kind of that mainstay in those training wheels. And if you took those off, they'd probably fall over and hurt other people. But I'm curious why you don't think that secular humanism or just, psychotherapy or, different kinds of preventative measures would do the trick for that.
Specifically with psychopaths, because
why are we picking on psychopaths?
Secular, because that everyone else, they're capable of empathy, and for them, I think secular morality and all the other stuff is the right direction to go.
Why do you think that people who can't feel empathy are immoral?
Well, I think that morality is when we act on our empathy.
Why?
Because every action associated with acting on empathy is colloquially what we are talking about when we talk about people doing good. We're talking about people acting empathetically.
I mean, I'm sure empathy makes it easier.
It can be helpful.
But I don't think that it's the end-all, be-all. I think that you can objectively, rationally know what is the right answer to a question and one that would cause the least harm and choose that option just because you know that choosing a different option would probably make your life worse. Like if I don't have empathy and I see somebody and I'm driving and they're walking across the street and not using the crosswalk, I don't have to think, oh, that poor person, they will be so hurt if I hit them. I think if I hit that person, I'm probably going to go to jail. That's what would, if I didn't have empathy, that would still stop me from hitting the person.
Does that make her immoral?
Well, that's kind of getting to the point of what I was talking about. See, now we've substituted the state for God. So in a case where they know that
we've substituted what for God?
We've substituted the state, the government. So now instead of being afraid of God, because in your example, they wouldn't do it because they're afraid of getting caught by the government. Rather than being caught by God.
She was just giving an example of one reason why somebody who can't feel empathy might avoid killing somebody.
Right. It could
but
be
there could be many other things.
I would be socially isolated from the group if I was acting in a way that wasn't, in
it could be,
moral.
I don't like blood and guts.
Well-
I mean, it could be a number of things.
Yeah.
Could be I don't have time for this.
I'm specifically referring to especially situations where like they know that there won't be any witnesses and that kind of thing.
So you're not talking about all psychopaths or sociopaths. You're just talking about a small subsect that want to commit crimes and therefore will because God isn't watching them?
Yeah, it sounds to me like you're not talking about psychopaths.
Right,
You're talking
just
about people that you think are bad.
Right. Because this is a whole other topic.
Right?
Talking about people who want to do bad things because they don't believe that there will be any repercussions.
So why do you think that is... So that's the thing. When somebody does want to do something that you think is bad, what I'm confused about is why anybody else thinks that they know why that person chose to do that thing. Because the fact is that, I mean, there could be a number of reasons why anybody does anything, and I can't possibly know what is in V's head no matter what she tells me. No matter what her mother tells me about how she grew up, no matter what her best friend tells me, no matter what she tells me to my face and how I know that she's an honest person, that doesn't mean that everything that comes out of her mouth is 100% accurate. So do you see why I'm stumped?
I'm not sure.
I think the issue here is that you seem to be making assumptions about why people do bad things.
But that's the thing, is you can think that something is bad, and it could be bad for you, but it could be really good for me. You know, just to take your walking across the street example.
Yeah.
And this is just an example. It's completely hypothetical. I'm not saying that it's good to go out and hit people with your car. What I am saying is that it is possible that hitting somebody with your car may have positive consequences, okay? It's possible, yes, obviously there will probably be some bad things that are going to happen if somebody dies because they have family and people will be affected and there's all kinds of things. But it's possible that there are good things. Maybe that person was going to experience an entire rest of their life of pain and suffering, and they were about to get kidnapped. And this way, they died, you know, at least in a state that their family can remember them in a positive way. You know, there's just a multitude of things that can happen that you have no idea about that could be good for some people and bad for others, and you just don't know. So for you to say, I think that what you're doing is bad, that means that you're immoral. It's like, yeah, but...
And not just immoral, it's psychopath.
Right.
No, so I think we're getting off topic here because you've moved the goalposts, right? You started out by saying, I'm worried that psychopaths who do not feel empathy and cannot
well, I did that. I redirected.
That without religion, they would then, you know, have problems integrating into society. And then you made the claim that secular morality or secular humanism or the state, whatever that is, and if you're the guy from Twitter, hi, because I've been talking about this with a guy from Twitter before, then...
I haven't mentioned this on Twitter.
Okay, that's another guy talking about the state. Okay, You made this claim that for some reason religion is the best way to, deter immoral action, and that's the part I
would not
disagree
say
with.
that in the general case. I would say that the narrative that something bad will happen to you by an authority figure, regardless of any living thing that is witnessing, is sort of a necessary paranoia.
Okay. Let me see if I can break this down for you just a little bit. And I'm not an evolutionary biologist or psychologist at all, but I agree that we are a social species, And one of the main reasons that we do things that benefit the group is because we are afraid that deviating from that will cost us something, whether that's access to social groups, access to food, access to shelter or safety. That is ingrained in us. And as we grew in consciousness and started coming up with reasons why we felt this way, we came up with this idea that there must be an authority figure that metes out justice because that must be why we feel this way. And then we moved away from that, hopefully, some of us at least. And now we have that same sense, and we might say, okay, well, we need to create a society that supplements this, whether that's with the justice system or whether that's with HR codes in a building, that's the way we organize society because we are a social species, and it's traceable through evolution. And God is a way to explain that, and that's a way we've explained it for a long time, and it's a very simplistic answer, so it sticks. But yeah, does that
what we
help?
What we can do in the place of religion to promote a secular worldview is to prove that there are other consequences. It's not necessarily that you're going to go to hell,
right?
Or anything like that. It's these are some things that will happen when you do this, and this is how life works. The good things happen and bad things happen, and this is how you try to navigate what's going to happen. Does that help?
Well, the problem is the psychopath would say, all right, those are the obstacles that I need to avoid to get away with this then.
No, that's not what a psychopath would say.
I think that you're making assumptions about people that you don't know.
I mean, it could be the case that I'm not well informed enough about psychopaths.
Maybe.
But
I think that's a problematic word to use. If you want to use
very bad case.
like bad people, bad to the bone people.
Maybe,
I don't know.
Maybe go, I don't know. Do a little more research on psychopaths and maybe try to see if you can find a forum and go meet some.
Well, I didn't meet one. That's why I'm calling, is because I think about how I could convince him using the tool that I use, but the secular morality that I use is based on empathy, and he doesn't see that as a valuable tool.
Okay, so that's a valid concern, right? And we should have started with that.
Yeah.
I think that what you should be doing is maybe researching morality a little bit more and figuring out other ways that people define morality and ascribe to morality. Because empathy can help. It can, and a lot of people use it as a guide, but it's not the only measure.
I would also say to look up emotional intelligence and child psychology, because when you think about when children's brains are just developing and they're just learning how the world works and how to speak languages and how to dress themselves and all kinds of things like that, that's the time where they're the best at learning. And so when you're trying to teach somebody life skills, like why it's good to do things for other people, that's a basic skill that children have to learn. And so I think that if you look into child psychology, that can be helpful to you. And start looking into emotional intelligence, because emotional intelligence has taught me how we can use our emotions. For example, when I feel angry, I can use, that's a really damn good motivator. You don't have to just sulk in it and just think about everything that's making you angry all the time. You can use it to go out and try to make changes and make other people happy and try to prevent other people from being angry. And so that's the thing, is when you don't experience empathy, that just means that you have another life skill, another emotional thing to learn to get over and help you navigate through the world that we live in, which unfortunately for that person, most people do experience empathy. So it just means that they have something new to navigate around, just like being left-handed. It's just something that's different, that's all.
Religion might be an easy way to keep people in line, but that doesn't mean it's the best way.
But I don't think that when you have somebody that's religious because they've been told to do that, I don't think that that's necessarily,
that's not empathy either, and that's not morality either. If you're doing things because you're afraid of punishment, then are you being empathetic? Yeah, then what does empathy have to do with it anyway?
Well, I'm saying that it would do something with morality if they started using it, but currently all they're aware of is obedience, and if that's what it takes to integrate them to society, then I'm not sure I want to take those training wheels away.
Well, then I'm glad that we don't give the training wheels to you.
Well,
but thank you so much. Yeah. I understand your frustration and I understand your concern, but what I've come down to is that it's not up to me to decide what's right for you or what's right for you. It's up to me to decide what's right for me and to fight for my rights and fight for your rights and fight for her rights. So I'm going to fight for the psychopaths too. But thank you so much for calling. Do you have anything else?
That'll be it. Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was good talking to you. Bye.
I think I understand where that caller was coming from.
I do
for
too.
sure. And it is a valid concern. And that's why we don't just say, if I was in a position where I could phase out religion, like that, I wouldn't do it like that because we don't have structures in place to make that transition better. So yeah, if we were to evaporate religion tomorrow, there would be
chaos,
basically hell on earth for a little bit. But we can avoid that by implementing better structures, and to just condemn a whole group of people to living in fear of everlasting punishment because you're afraid of something they may do in the future. That's not very empathetic.
Yeah. Well said. So, all right. So I saw on the little notes here that we are having tamales for dinner. Just in case anybody's watching and lives about 5-10 minutes away, get your butts up here. We've got tamales. Okay. So Joel, can you hear us?
Hi, this is Joel.
Joel, I'm sorry. Hi. Thank you for hanging in there. It looks like you.
I'm on right now.
I'm sorry?
I can't believe I'm on right now.
Well, welcome.
Well, you are, and you're talking to Jenna and V. And it says that here that you accidentally introduced religion to your aunt. Tell us about that.
Well, in retrospect, I guess it wasn't accidental at the time. I was a believer back then in high school, and to fast forward through everything, like I've always been like questioning things. I wasn't sure that what I was believing was necessarily true. It was around me, and I just never really felt faith. Like I didn't feel it. I didn't. Sorry, I'm nervous, but
okay.
I just shout out to my friend Sean. Like the last 2 weeks, I've just been watching so much Atheist Experience and Talk Heathen, and I
nice.
Probably consumed like 80 hours in like 4 days. The first 4 days, like that was probably way too much, but that really helped.
Hey, I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you have us on speakerphone, Joel?
I meant to take that off. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
There you go.
Is it better?
Yes, please. Thank
There's
you.
just a little bit of feedback.
All right, continue. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. I just I had studied logic back in the day, like symbolic logic, these deductive arguments, formal arguments, and this really continued all that. And I'm like, yeah, I never really had a great reason for believing.
Well, just try to help you out a little bit. It says here that you called because you felt guilty about talking to your aunt about religion. Is that what you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, it was my mom's cousin. Like I just went back to New York we had a service for my mom who recently passed, and
I'm sorry.
No, thanks, guys. She came up to me during this reception and sort of reminded me that when I was in high school, I was staying with her for some time. I had, I had brought her to this church at the time that was nearby her, since I was living with her, and maybe went like 2-3 times. I don't remember, maybe 4 times, but she continued on after that. Like I was off to college, and she continued on and basically became a believer, or maybe she became a believer again. I'm not sure, and raised her kids in this, like, for the next 14 years, like her son's in the choir and everything, like, and it was like a surprise because I don't think this way like I used to think.
So why do you blame yourself?
Not think. Well, it's hard. There's a feeling of guilt there, but it's like I didn't know better, really.
Yeah, that's why you shouldn't blame yourself, in my opinion.
Yeah, I tend to what?
Yeah, I mean, you didn't know what you know now, and that's the way I think about a lot of things. You know, when I think about things that I could possibly feel really guilty about you know, things I've done in the past, I'm like, yeah, but I didn't know what I know now, so I can't be too hard on myself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I know lots of people who used to be religious, who have since deconverted and feel a lot of guilt and pain over the people that they brought into their religion while they were still religious.
Right.
You're not alone in that feeling. That is almost practically universal, I think, among people who have moved out of religion, either leaving people behind or introducing people. Like, it's a real valid emotion. So I do want to validate that.
Absolutely.
But it's not something that you need to take with you. That was past you. That was you were doing what you thought was best for your aunt at the time. You were trying to share something that you loved with her, and you know, that's not something to be ashamed of or guilty about.
You did the thing that you thought was right at the time, and I think that that's all that anybody can do. You know, when you change your mind, well, then keep doing it. You know, and when you change your mind again, keep doing it. But when you get new information, as long as you can say, well, I'm willing to accept that I was wrong, and I'm willing to update the information as far as what I know now, well, that's all I can do, right? And so when I think about how guilty I feel about having wasted what I call wasting so many years of my life on religion, in church, in prayer, in, you know, CCD classes, and so many things that I've wasted so much time. And I feel guilty about that. And that guilt is what motivated me to spend as much time as I can now countering that. And that's what got me to start volunteering at this atheist community of Austin and start call screening. And now I'm on a show talking to people about what I think is wrong with how they came to their conclusions and how I discovered I was wrong. And I'm basically doing the exact opposite of what I used to do because I'm motivated by my guilt. So when I think about, you know, if you do feel guilty or you feel angry or you feel depressed about it, use it, because those are motivating emotions.
Yeah, let's lay it out there. I was in a Christian college, and I was losing my faith and not telling anyone about it. And so I was going through, and I was talking with you about this earlier, I was going through going to prayer meetings, going to church, going to chapel with my friends, and I was basically lying, right? And I was pretending like I believed what they did, and I didn't. And then later on, I found out that other friends in that same group were also losing their faith and feeling very alone and isolated and lost. So I could go back and beat myself up for not being honest about my own feelings and helping them. But I was just working with what I knew. You know, I was taking the steps that I thought were right for me at the time and right for my friends. I didn't want to hurt them. I didn't want to lose them. So I can't go and beat up past V for what she did or didn't do, and neither should you.
And now she can use that experience to her benefit and use it and learn from it and talk about it so that you can learn from it and other people listening can learn from it. And that's where I think we were talking about this earlier too, that talking about it is the best thing you can do. Because if you talk about it, someone's going to hear it, whether it's, you know, someone across the coffee shop that just accidentally overheard what you said, and then they're going to start thinking and then talk about it with somebody else and then talk about it with, that's how balls start rolling. That's how things start happening and things start changing, is it starts with a conversation. So if you're feeling guilty, I'd say just talk about it.
And you are right here, right now. So
thank you.
You're on a good path already.
I'm sorry. We've been talking for most of this conversation.
That's cool. Pretending is like probably the worst thing. I never wanted to be inauthentic, and I was always someone who was like, you know, I know a lot and yet I know nothing. That's why I always said, because I'm like always looking for something new to, you know.
But that's cool.
I'm not set in anything really like 100% because I had no reason to be set 100%. But you know, when it comes to just like talking with her, like I feel like almost a responsibility, like to at some point, you know, we're just sort of reconnecting after like a number of years, and I feel like I should at some point bring it up, or
you can.
Like I've talked to my aunt. I've talked to an aunt already, like my mom's sister, and she was like surprised. I was like, yeah, I think I'm an atheist. And she's like, what? And I told my brother, I like talked to my close friend, let him know, like,
yeah, just keep talking.
I still want to join like the different communities in the Reddit.
As long as you're safe, I've got to add that.
Yeah.
As long as it's safe to talk to everybody that you're talking to.
Oh yeah, well, the people that may judge me, I don't think they're, maybe they're on Facebook, but I don't talk to them on a daily basis. And
Okay. Just want to make sure.
Really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to talk with your aunt after you've reconnected, then yeah, for sure, feel free to do that.
I would tell her that I'd feel guilty and why I felt guilty, and if she had a question, I'd tell her, just be honest.
Yeah.
She might think about it later, and she might start questioning later, and then think, hey, you know what? He told me this, and maybe I can go back to him, and he can help me through. You never know.
Yeah. And at the very least, she can tell you not to feel guilty.
Right. And hey, if she's happy and if she's raising kids that are acting on what you think is moral and doing good things and being good people, then I think that maybe they're fine.
Yeah, I mean they're good people. I think the truth is important.
Totally,
the truth is, and I feel like the same way I felt like it was sort of a duty to like proselytize like that to anyone who would listen. I never really thought that stuck with anybody.
Yeah.
Like now my friends they just kind of tolerate me talking about being saved from hell and whatnot. But I didn't think that landed until like 14 years later. My aunt tells me like this actually impacted her, and I was like, oh man, now what? So
that brings me to another thing real quick, is that when you do think that you know something, anything, I am actually very careful now to start to question myself before I start telling people what I know, because I've been wrong about so many things before that when I do try to speak about something that I consider myself, knowing, I try to say, oh, well, this is what I think or what I know as of now, or, as far as I've learned, this is what I know. But I try not to be like, oh, this is the truth, because I don't necessarily ever know. And I don't want anybody to, if I'm wrong, I don't want to convince anybody of the wrong thing. But hey, that's another thing that you can take from this, is learning that in case you're wrong, you might not want to go out and tell people what to believe.
Right.
Right? Because that's not what I'm doing. I'm not telling anybody what to believe. Right?
Like suggesting to them, but then it's like people should find out for themselves is better than listening to what I say. Like, what do I actually know?
Right.
But let me tell you, my favorite things are like these logical fallacies. Like I had studied them before, but not. There's so many more that I wasn't even aware of. I keep catching myself now. Like
they're a lot of fun.
Logical fallacies
They're
are
crazy.
fantastic.
I love it.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Catch yourself like talking in absolutes is like going to fail.
Yeah, slippery slope, all of it.
That was my main thing. The trees, like everybody talks about the trees. Like,
look at that.
Look at the tree.
So complex. It was like talking from incredulity.
What is it? Inference from credulity? Argument from credulity.
Yeah.
Incredulity.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like how could it not be God? Like that was pretty much the main thing I was running on for most of my life.
Oh yeah.
Not really from the Bible.
Maybe even just sharing a couple of those with your aunt, saying, hey, I found this awesome hobby. I'm figuring out logical fallacies. Let's try one out.
Make a game out of it. Be like, make up some cards and play with the kids and be like, hey, can you solve the fallacy? Actually, I'm probably going to do that now.
I was just saying, like, we have to team up maybe.
I think that your heart's in the right place and you're feeling things that a lot of us have felt. But you didn't do anything wrong. No one's holding it against you, and you shouldn't hold it against yourself. And you can use this to, get in touch with your aunt and talk more about this or about other stuff and just be in her life and be a good influence. All right?
Sounds good to me. You guys are really awesome.
You are too.
You are too.
Really, I've been watching. I'm like watching here. I'm talking to you about watching. There's like a 3-second delay or whatever. It's like, I can't believe I'm with you right now. This is...
Well, call us back and let us know if you talk to your aunt. Then let us know how that conversation goes, and we'll talk to you again later, okay?
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Thank you, Joel.
Thank you, Sean.
All right. Awesome. Well, that was my first time hosting the atheist experience. Woo! And thank y'all for watching, and thank y'all for the crew. Crew cam. Awesome people back there. I think tamales, I heard them. They spoke to me.
They heard.
Stop. We gotta go eat tamales.
Eat tamales.
Thank y'all for watching.